Story 1. My fiancée told her bachelorette party, "I'm having second thoughts about him," to get laughs. I calmly said, "I understand completely," and left quietly. The next morning, her father called screaming hysterically, "The mortgage payments. Dear God, what did you just do? I mean, honestly girls, I'm having second thoughts about him." The words floated through the half-open patio door like poison gas. I'd arrived early at the beach house, stupid me, thinking I'd surprise Jessica with her favorite champagne for the bachelorette party. The laughter that followed her statement hit me harder than the words themselves. "Oh my goodness, Jess, you're terrible." Someone shrieked. "No, I'm serious," Jessica continued, and the playful tone made it worse somehow. "Like, David's sweet and all, but sometimes I wonder if I'm settling, you know?" More laughter. I stood frozen on the deck, bottle of Dom Perignon growing warm in my hands. "Girl, you are not settling," another voice chimed in. "That man worships the ground you walk on. Plus, hello, tech executive? You're set for life." "That's exactly what I mean," Jessica said, and I could picture her doing that little hair flip she always did when she was being performatively dramatic. "It's almost too easy. Where's the challenge? Where's the passion?" I set the champagne down carefully on the deck railing. My hands were steady. That surprised me. Jessica Marie Whitmore, a voice I recognized as her best friend Claire, said, "You better be joking right now. Your wedding is in 2 weeks. "Oh, relax," Jessica laughed. "I'm obviously going through with it. I'm just saying, sometimes I fantasize about what it would be like if I'd ended up with someone like Marcus. Remember Marcus from college? Now that guy had edge." Marcus. The name landed like a punch. Marcus Chen had been Jessica's boyfriend junior year, a charming finance bro who'd cheated on her with 3 different women. She'd cried on my shoulder about it back then. We'd been friends, just friends, and I'd waited 2 years before asking her out, making sure she was ready. I picked up the champagne and walked back to my car. Nobody saw me. The drive from the beach house to my apartment in downtown Portland took 40 minutes, but I don't remember any of it. Once home, I opened my laptop and started making phone calls. The first call went to my lawyer, Martin Richardson. We'd grown up together in Seattle, and he owed me more favors than I could count. "David? It's almost midnight," Martin answered groggily. "I need to move up the prenup execution date," I said. "Can we backdate it legally?" "What? Buddy, what's going on? Just answer the question." Martin was quiet for a moment. "If both parties agree to sign backdated documents, technically yes, but David, this is highly irregular. The wedding's in 2 weeks. What happened?" "Nothing happened. I'm just being cautious." I could hear him shuffling papers in the background, probably sitting up in bed. "Look, the prenup you drafted is already pretty airtight. Everything you own before the relationship stays yours, and I want to add a clause," I interrupted. "A termination clause triggered by publicly stated intent to defraud or deceive. Can we do that?" "Publicly stated? You mean like if she admits she's marrying you for money?" "Hypothetically." Martin let out a low whistle. "Oh my gosh, David. Did she say something? Can we do it or not?" "Yeah, we can do it. But if you're having doubts, maybe you should just draft it tonight. I'll sign tomorrow." "And Martin?" "Not a word to anyone." The second call was harder. My sister Rachel answered on the first ring, always a light sleeper. "David? What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I need you to do something for me, and I need you to trust me without asking questions." "That's literally impossible for me, and you know it." Despite everything, I almost smiled. "Fair enough. Short version, I need you to attend Jessica's bachelorette party tomorrow night as A+1. Claire's cousin was supposed to come but cancelled. I already confirmed you can take her spot." "Why would I want to go to your fiancée's bachelorette party?" "Because I need you to record everything on your phone." Subtly. The silence stretched out. "David, what is happening right now? Can you just trust me? Please. This is insane. Are you okay? Do you think she's cheating?" "I don't know what I think. But I need to be sure." Rachel sighed heavily. "Fine. But you're explaining everything afterward." "Everything." The third call went to my financial advisor, Patricia Gomez, who thankfully kept vampire hours during market volatility. "David, excellent timing. I was just reviewing your portfolio. The Singapore acquisition is, Patricia, I need to restructure some assets. Tonight." "Tonight? David, it's Friday night. Markets are. I know what day it is. This isn't about markets. I need to create a separate trust, funded with liquid assets, that can be dissolved and redistributed within 24 hours of my written authorization." That's not how trusts typically work. The whole point is, can it be done?" Patricia paused. I could hear her typing. "Technically, yes. You'd need an irrevocable trust with a specific termination event written into the founding documents. But David, this is extremely unusual. What's going on? I'm protecting myself. From Jessica? From everyone. By 3 a.m., I had 14 legal documents drafted, signed, and notarized via mobile notary. I'd restructured approximately $4.3 million in liquid assets, contacted 3 real estate attorneys about property transfer protocols, and set up a meeting with Jessica's father for Monday morning. Richard Whitmore and I had always gotten along well. He was a contractor who'd built a successful regional business before a series of bad investments had nearly bankrupted him 6 years ago. I'd helped him then, a $200,000 loan to save his company, another $150,000 to keep his house out of foreclosure. He'd insisted on treating it as a business loan with interest, but I'd structured it so the interest was minimal and the payments manageable. He'd been making those payments religiously, right up until 3 months ago, when I'd told him to stop. Wedding present, I'd said. The debt was forgiven, the house was his free and clear. He'd actually cried. Saturday afternoon, Rachel called. I'm here. This is the weirdest thing you've ever asked me to do, and that includes the time you made me pretend to be your girlfriend at that investor dinner. That was to avoid an awkward situation with a CEO who wouldn't take no for answer. And this? This is insurance. Just record. Casually. Like you're taking video for social media. David, I swear to God, if you're setting me up for something, you'll understand soon. I promise. The waiting was harder than I expected. I sat in my apartment, lights off, watching the city lights blur through floor-to-ceiling windows. My phone sat on the coffee table, silent as a tombstone. At 10:47 p.m., Rachel called. David. Her voice was different. Tight. David, I'm sending you some files. What happened? Just. Watch them. I'm sorry. The first video showed Jessica and her friends doing shots. Harmless enough. The second video, recorded from what looked like Rachel's lap, captured Jessica in the middle of an animated story. So then David's like, I want to take care of you, and I'm thinking, jackpot, right? Jessica was laughing, words slightly slurred. Like, I did the math. If we stay married 7 years, even with the prenup, I walk away with enough to never work again. 7 years? Someone asked. That's when the prenup provisions start to equalize. His lawyer explained it all. 7 years and I'm entitled to half of everything acquired during the marriage. David's company is about to go public. We're talking hundreds of millions. My hands were shaking. I set the phone down. But what if you actually fall in love with him? This was Claire's voice, skeptical. Oh, Claire, come on. David's fine. He's nice. He'll be a good father someday. But let's be real, I'm marrying a retirement plan. A really, really generous retirement plan. The laughter that followed was different from Friday night. Meaner. More knowing. Girl, you are stone cold, someone said admiringly. I'm practical, Jessica corrected. David's so desperate to be loved that he'll believe anything. It's actually kind of sad. The video ended. I sat in the darkness for a long time. Sunday morning, I drove to the beach house. Jessica's car was still in the driveway, along with 3 others. I used my key to let myself in quietly. The house reeked of alcohol and expensive perfume. Jessica was asleep on the couch, still in her party dress. I stood over her for a moment, memorizing her face. In sleep, she looked younger. Innocent, almost. I left the ring on the coffee table with a single post-it note, I understand completely. By the time she woke up, I was already at Martin's office, signing the dissolution documents he'd prepared over the weekend. Jessica called 47 times. I didn't answer. Monday morning arrived with gray skies and the promise of rain. Richard Whitmore showed up at my office at 9 a.m. sharp, looking confused. David, what's this about? Your assistant said it was urgent. Sit down, Richard. His face went pale at my tone. Is this about Jessica? She's been calling hysterically, saying you left her, saying there was a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding. I slid a folder across my desk. These are copies of the original loan documents for the money I lent you. All $350,000, plus the accrued interest I forgave. But you said that was a wedding present. You said. I said I was forgiving the debt contingent on the marriage proceeding. The marriage is not proceeding. Richard's hands trembled as he opened the folder. David, please, you can't. The full amount is due in 30 days. That's standard practice when the original conditions of debt forgiveness are not met. 30 days? David, I can't possibly, my business doesn't have that kind of liquidity. The house has $370,000 in equity, according to the most recent appraisal. It should cover the debt. Richard stood up, his chair scraping loudly. You're going to take my house? Over a fight with Jessica? This isn't about a fight. This is about your daughter admitting on video that she was marrying me for money. That she calculated exactly how long she needed to stay married to maximize her financial gain. That I was, and I quote, a retirement plan. The color drained from Richard's face completely. What? I turned my laptop around, showing him the video Rachel had sent. I played the whole thing. Watched his expression crumble. Oh my goodness, he whispered. Oh my goodness, I didn't know. David, I swear, I didn't know she thought. The loan is due in 30 days. My attorney will be in touch. Please, Richard's voice cracked. Please, David. I'll talk to her. I'll make her apologize. She'll understand what she did wrong, This isn't about apologies. Then what is it about? Revenge? Protection. You raised a woman who views marriage as a financial transaction. That reflects on you as much as it does on her. Richard's face went from pale to red. Now you wait just a minute. I'm done waiting. I waited 2 years to ask Jessica out because I wanted to make sure she was over Marcus. I waited through her hot and cold phases, her tests, her little games. I waited while she figured out whether she wanted to marry me. I'm done waiting. She loves you, Richard said, but his voice lacked conviction. She loves what I represent. There's a difference. He left without another word. I watched him from my window, a 62-year-old man moving like he was 80, climbing into his truck with the company logo on the side. For a moment, I almost felt bad. Then I remembered Jessica's laugh on that video, the casual cruelty of it, and the feeling passed. Jessica showed up at my office 20 minutes later. Security called, asking if they should let her up. I almost said no. But curiosity won out. She burst through my office door in yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt, makeup free, hair in a messy bun. Even devastated, she was beautiful. That had always been her weapon. David, what did you do? Her voice was high, panicked. My dad just called screaming about the house. I called in the loan. But you forgave that loan. You said it was a wedding gift. Contingent on the wedding happening. The wedding is not happening. Because of what? Because of what I said at the party? David, I was drunk. I was joking. The girls were. Do you even remember what you said? She hesitated. It was taken out of context. Rachel recorded the whole night. Would you like to watch it? Jessica's face went white. Rachel was there? Surprise. You planted your sister at my bachelorette party? David, that's insane. What's insane is calculating how long you need to stay married to me to maximize your profit margin. I didn't. 7 years. That's what you said. 7 years and you'd be entitled to half of everything acquired during the marriage. You specifically mentioned the company going public. Jessica's mouth opened and closed. I was drunk, she repeated weakly. Drunk words, sober thoughts. Please. She moved closer, reaching for my hands. I stepped back. Please, David. I made a mistake. I said stupid things to sound cool in front of my friends. But I do love you. I do want to marry you. Why? What? Why do you want to marry me? Specifically. Not what I can give you. Not what I represent. Why me? Jessica stood there, mouth working, and the silence stretched out between us like a chasm. She couldn't answer. Worse, I could see in her eyes that she knew I knew she couldn't answer. The loan is due in 30 days, I said quietly. I suggest your father starts looking into refinancing options. You're really going to take his house? Over this? I'm going to collect on a legitimate debt. What he does with that information is his choice. David, he'll lose everything. The house has been in our family for 3 generations. Your mother passed away 10 years ago. She's not here to see what her daughter became. It was a low blow. I knew it even as I said it. But Jessica's face crumpled, and somehow that felt like vindication. I hate you, she whispered. You never loved me, so we're even. She left. I stood at the window watching her cross the parking lot, shoulders shaking. My phone rang. Martin. David, I just got a very angry call from Richard Whitmore's attorney. They're claiming undue influence and coercion regarding the original loan documents. Are they now? They're saying you deliberately structured the loan to trap Jessica into marriage. That's an interesting theory. Too bad all our communications were documented and there's a paper trail showing Richard approached me for the loan, not the other way around. They're going to make this ugly. Let them. Tuesday brought the first media leak. Somehow, the story hit the Portland Tribune's gossip section. Tech executive calls off wedding, demands father-in-law's house. The article was short on facts and long on speculation, but it painted me as a vindictive monster. Wednesday, my company's PR team scheduled an emergency meeting. David, we need to get ahead of this, Samantha Chen, our communications director, said urgently. The optics are terrible. Billionaire ruins working class family is not a headline we want. I'm not a billionaire. You will be when we go public next month. Which is why this matters. Investors are already asking questions. The board wants a statement. The board can relax. This is personal, not professional. There's no such thing when you're the CEO. David, I need you to give me something I can work with. Was she cheating? Did she steal from you? Give me a villain edit here. I thought about the videos. About Jessica's laugh. About the casual cruelty of her calculation. No comment. David, I said no comment. This is between me and the Whitmores. The company is not involved. Samantha looked like she wanted to argue but thought better of it. Fine. But if this spirals, don't say I didn't warn you. Thursday, Jessica's lawyer reached out. A woman named Victoria Martinez, known for high-profile divorce cases despite this not being a divorce. Mr. Brennan, I represent Jessica Whitmore. I'd like to discuss a settlement. There's nothing to settle. We weren't married. Nevertheless, my client has certain expectations regarding. Your client admitted on video that she was marrying me for financial gain. Should I send you a copy? Silence. I'd like to see this alleged video. I'll have my attorney forward it. I'm sure it will make for fascinating viewing. Mr. Brennan, let's be clear. You're attempting to financially ruin a family over a private conversation at a party. How do you think that will play in court? Better than attempting to defraud someone into marriage, I'd imagine. My client denies any intent to defraud. Your client was recorded admitting exactly that. Mr. Brennan, I'm offering you an opportunity to resolve this quietly. Drop the loan collection, and Miss Whitmore will agree to a mutual non-disclosure agreement. You can both move on. I don't need to move on. I'm exactly where I want to be. You're making a mistake. That's what Jessica thought about me. Turns out we were both wrong. Friday afternoon, exactly 1 week after I'd left that champagne on the deck, Richard Whitmore showed up at my apartment. Building security called, asking if they should send him away. Let him up, I said. He looked worse than the last time I'd seen him. Thinner. Older. When I opened the door, he didn't wait for an invitation. He walked straight to my living room and sat down heavily on the couch. I've been trying to refinance the house, he said without preamble. Every bank in the state has turned me down. My credit took too much of a hit 6 years ago. The best offer I got was 9% interest over 15 years, and the payments would be more than my business brings in monthly. That's unfortunate. You knew this would happen. You knew I wouldn't be able to refinance. I knew it was a possibility. Richard looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw something other than panic in his eyes. You're smarter than I gave you credit for. I thought you were just a nice kid who made good. But this is calculated. You planned this whole thing. I planned to protect myself. The rest just followed. Protect yourself from what? From my daughter making a stupid comment at a party? From marrying someone who saw me as a financial asset rather than a person. And you think destroying our lives is the appropriate response? I think collecting on a legitimate debt is appropriate. What you're experiencing are the natural consequences of your daughter's choices. Richard stood up slowly. Let me tell you something about consequences, David. You're young, 34, right? You think you have all the answers. You think you've got the world figured out. But here's what you don't understand yet. Revenge isn't the same as justice. This isn't revenge. The heck it isn't. You're trying to hurt Jessica by hurting me. You think I don't see that? I'm trying to demonstrate that actions have consequences. Maybe if you'd taught Jessica that lesson, we wouldn't be here. Richard's jaw tightened. You sanctimonious son of a, he stopped himself, took a breath. My daughter made a mistake. A bad one. I'm not defending what she said. But you? You're about to make an old man homeless to prove a point. You're 62, not 90. That's hardly old. And you're not going to be homeless. You'll sell the house, pay me back, and find somewhere smaller to live. People do it every day. That house has been in my family since my grandfather built it in 1957. My wife and I brought Jessica home from the hospital to that house. Every memory I have of the last 40 years is in that house. Then you should have raised a daughter who understood the value of loyalty. Richard stared at me for a long moment. You know what's funny? I thought you were good for her. I thought you'd balance out her impulsive side, teach her stability. I was happy when she said yes to your proposal. I thought, finally, she's found someone solid. I thought the same thing about her. But you're not solid, David. You're ice. You're standing here, about to take my home, and you don't even feel it. I feel it. I just don't let it change what needs to be done. Then God help whoever you end up with, because they'll never measure up to whatever impossible standard you've set. After he left, I poured myself a drink, rare for me, but it felt appropriate, and stood at the window overlooking the city. Richard's words echoed in my mind. Ice. Was that what I'd become? My phone buzzed. Martin. We've got a problem. What kind of problem? Jessica's lawyer filed an emergency injunction claiming the loan is fraudulent. They're arguing you deliberately entrapped Richard into debt knowing Jessica would eventually be your fiancée. That's absurd. I lent him money 4 years ago. I didn't even start dating Jessica until 3 years ago. They've got timelines showing you and Jessica were friends for 2 years before that. They're going to argue you were in love with her the whole time, that the loan was part of a long-term manipulation scheme. That's conspiracy theory nonsense. Maybe. But it's creative nonsense. The judge granted a temporary stay on the loan collection pending a hearing next week. I set my drink down carefully. What are our chances? In front of the right judge? Excellent. In front of the wrong judge? It's a coin flip. Judges don't like stories where rich guys crush working class families, even when it's legally justified. Set up the hearing. Let's end this. The hearing was scheduled for the following Thursday. In the meantime, the media coverage intensified. Someone, probably Jessica's PR team, leaked a more detailed version of the story, complete with photos of Richard's house and quotes from neighbors about what a good man he was. The narrative was crystal clear: heartless tech executive destroys humble contractor's family over lover's quarrel. I was the villain. Jessica was the victim. Richard was collateral damage. My inbox filled with hate mail. Someone started a petition to remove me as CEO. The company's stock price dipped 2%. And through it all, I felt nothing. Richard was right. I was ice. Tuesday before the hearing, I got an unexpected visitor. Claire Robertson, Jessica's best friend and maid of honor. Security called, surprised. She says she has information you'll want to hear. Send her up. Claire had always intimidated me slightly. She was a litigator at one of Portland's top firms, sharp as a knife and twice as dangerous. She walked into my apartment like she owned it. David. Thank you for seeing me. Did Jessica send you? Goodness, no. She'd kill me if she knew I was here. Claire settled into a chair without being invited. I'm here because I've been friends with Jessica since we were 7 years old, and I need to tell you something. I'm listening. Jessica really does love you. That's your pitch? Because. Shut up and listen. Claire's voice was sharp. Jessica loves you, but she doesn't know how to not be transactional about relationships. Her dad raised her that way after her mom died. Everything was about value, about what you could get from people. It's not an excuse, it's just context. Context doesn't change what she said. No, it doesn't. But here's what you don't know: Jessica has been in therapy for the last 6 months trying to work through this stuff. She's been trying to unlearn all the toxic patterns Richard instilled in her. She picked a great time to relapse. She was drunk and showing off. It was stupid and hurtful and wrong. But David, I've watched that girl cry herself to sleep every night this week. She's devastated. Am I supposed to feel sorry for her? Claire leaned forward. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for her. I'm asking you to consider that maybe this nuclear option you've chosen is disproportionate to what actually happened. She admitted she was marrying me for money. She said something horrible while drunk. Have you never said something you didn't mean? Never let your worst thoughts slip out at the wrong moment? Not about someone I claim to love. Because you're perfect? Because you've never had a selfish thought? I was quiet for a moment. Why are you really here, Claire? Because I know you have those videos. Rachel told me. Rachel has a big mouth. Rachel's worried about you. She thinks you're having some kind of breakdown. I'm fine. You're about to make an old man homeless. That's not fine, David. That's scorched earth. It's consequences. It's cruelty dressed up as principle. Claire stood. Look, I'm not defending what Jessica said. If I were you, I'd probably have called off the wedding too. But this thing with Richard? That's not about protecting yourself. That's about punishing her through him, and you know it. Are you done? Almost. One more thing. Claire pulled out her phone, showed me a photo. It was Jessica, at what looked like a therapy appointment, eyes red from crying. This was taken yesterday. She's trying, David. Maybe not as hard as she should have before, but she's trying now. Good for her. You're really not going to budge on this? The hearing is Thursday. We'll let the judge decide. Claire's expression hardened. You know what I think? I think you're terrified. I think for the first time in your life, someone got under your defenses, and the moment you found out she might not be perfect, you torched everything rather than risk being vulnerable. That's an interesting psychological analysis from someone who's not a therapist. I've known you for 3 years, David. You're not as mysterious as you think. You're just scared. After she left, I sat in the growing darkness, not bothering to turn on lights. Scared. Was that it? Was that what this was really about? My phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. David Brennan? Speaking. My name is Marcus Chen. The world seemed to tilt slightly. Marcus. Jessica's college ex. The one she'd mentioned at the party. What do you want? I heard about what happened with you and Jessica. I wanted to give you some perspective. I don't need perspective from you. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Curiosity won out again. Fine. 5 minutes. Jessica and I dated for about a year and a half in college. She was great, smart, funny, beautiful. But there was always something off about her. Everything was transactional. She'd do something nice for me, then cash it in later like she was collecting debt. It took me a long time to realize she'd been trained that way. I'm aware of her issues. Are you aware that she cheated on me with 3 guys because she was trying to maximize her options? That's what she told me when I found out. She was hedging her bets, keeping multiple doors open in case I didn't work out. Why are you telling me this? Because I married someone else 3 years ago. Someone who loves me without calculating the return on investment. And you know what I realized? Jessica did me a favor. If she'd been better at hiding her nature, I might have married her, and then I'd never have found Sarah. So this is a pep talk? This is me telling you that whatever you're feeling right now, the anger, the betrayal, the urge to burn everything down, it's valid. But be careful you don't become the monster while fighting one. Jessica's not a monster. She's just selfish. And what are you becoming? The question hung in the air between us. Your 5 minutes are up, I said, and hung up. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about all the different perspectives I'd heard. Rachel saying I was having a breakdown. Claire saying I was scared. Marcus saying I was becoming a monster. Richard saying I was ice. Was any of it true? Thursday arrived with rain, appropriate for Portland in March. The courthouse was downtown, a brutalist concrete building that somehow managed to look both imposing and depressing. Martin met me in the lobby. You ready? As I'll ever be. David, last chance to settle. Victoria Martinez called me this morning. They're willing to drop everything if you forgive the loan. And Jessica? She wants to talk to you. In person. After the hearing, regardless of outcome. We'll see what the judge says first. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Judge Patricia Morrison presided, a woman in her late 50s with a reputation for no-nonsense rulings. Richard sat on one side with Victoria Martinez. I sat on the other with Martin. Jessica wasn't there. I tried not to analyze what I felt about that. Victoria presented first. She painted a picture of manipulation and calculated cruelty, me befriending Jessica while secretly planning to trap her father in inescapable debt. She showed timelines, suggested motives, and made me sound like a comic book villain. Martin countered with facts. The loan had been Richard's idea, properly documented, with reasonable terms. The forgiveness had been contingent on the wedding, clearly stated in writing. Jessica's recorded admissions proved intent to defraud. None of this was revenge, it was simple contract enforcement. Judge Morrison listened to everything without expression. Mr. Brennan, she said finally, I'd like to hear from you directly. Why did you forgive this loan in the first place? I stood. Your Honor, I forgave it because I cared about Richard. He'd been good to me, welcomed me into his family. I wanted to start my marriage without that debt hanging over us. And now? Now I've learned that the marriage would have been built on false pretenses. My fiancée admitted, on video, that she was marrying me for financial gain. That she'd calculated the exact timeline to maximize her profit. Under those circumstances, the original conditions of the loan forgiveness no longer apply. So this is about punishment. This is about principle. If someone admits they're defrauding you, you don't reward that behavior. Even if it means an elderly man loses his family home? Richard Whitmore is 62 years old, owns a successful contracting business, and has options. He's not going to be homeless. He's going to be inconvenienced. Judge Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Ms. Martinez, I've reviewed the loan documents. They're ironclad. The forgiveness clause clearly states that it's contingent on the marriage proceeding. Is there any legal argument for why that clause shouldn't be enforced? Victoria stood. Your Honor, we believe the clause itself was unconscionable, designed to coerce. You believe, or you can prove? The circumstances suggest. Suggesting is not proving, Counselor. Do you have any actual evidence of coercion? Victoria hesitated. No, Your Honor. Then I'm lifting the stay. Mr. Brennan is within his legal rights to collect on this debt. Judge Morrison turned to me. However, Mr. Brennan, I'm going to offer you some unsolicited advice. Just because something is legal doesn't make it right. You're well within your rights to pursue this debt. But I've been on this bench for 17 years, and I've seen a lot of people make legally correct decisions that they regret for the rest of their lives. Think carefully about whether this is a bridge you really want to burn. Thank you, Your Honor. I will. As we filed out of the courtroom, Martin pulled me aside. You won. The loan is enforceable. Richard has 30 days to pay or face foreclosure proceedings. Good. David, did you hear what the judge said? About. I hurt her. I just don't agree. Outside the courthouse, Richard was waiting. He looked diminished somehow, smaller than he had even a week ago. David, he said quietly. Can we talk? Just for a minute? Martin started to object, but I held up a hand. It's fine. Give us a moment. Richard and I walked to a small park across the street, sat on a wet bench under the shelter of an oak tree. I've been thinking, Richard said, about something my wife used to say. Margaret, she had this way of seeing through people's nonsense. She'd look at Jessica when she was being manipulative and say, that child has a gift for getting what she wants, but she's going to lose everything if she doesn't learn that people aren't transactions. Sounds like your wife was smart. She was smarter than me. After she died, I didn't know how to raise a teenage girl alone. So I taught Jessica what I knew: business, value, negotiation. I thought I was preparing her for the world. Instead, I created someone who can't love without calculating the cost. That's not my fault. No, it's mine. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry she hurt you. I'm sorry I didn't see what I was doing to her. I'm sorry for all of it. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the rain. The thing is, Richard continued, I can't pay you back. Not in 30 days. Probably not in 30 years. The business is barely breaking even. The house is all I have. When you foreclose, I'll lose everything my grandfather built, everything Margaret and I made together. I'll be starting over at 62. You could sell the business. Use that money too. The business is worthless without me running it. I've got 3 employees who depend on me. If I sell, they lose their jobs. If I keep it, I might be able to make enough to rent somewhere small. Richard, I'm not asking you to forgive the debt again. I'm not even asking you to give me more time. I'm asking you to think about what you're really accomplishing here. Jessica hurt you. I understand that. But does hurting me hurt her? Or does it just create more pain in the world? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Rachel. David, where are you? At the courthouse. Why? You need to get to Swedish Medical Center. Now. My blood ran cold. What happened? It's Jessica. David, just get here. Swedish Medical Center was 15 minutes away. I made it in 8. Rachel met me in the emergency room waiting area, her face pale. What happened? I demanded. She took pills. A whole bottle of sleeping pills. Her roommate found her about an hour ago and called 911. The world seemed to tilt. Is she? She's alive. They pumped her stomach. She's going to be okay physically. But David, Rachel grabbed my arm. She left a note. For you. She handed me a crumpled piece of paper, sealed in a plastic evidence bag. Through the plastic, I could read Jessica's handwriting. David, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I said, for who I am, for destroying the only good thing in my life. You were right about me. I'm selfish and calculating and broken. My dad's going to lose his house because I'm a terrible person. Maybe everyone's better off without me. I sank into a chair, the note trembling in my hands. David, Rachel said gently, what did you do? I just wanted her to understand. I wanted consequences. I couldn't finish the sentence. Richard arrived 10 minutes later, ran past us toward the emergency room. A nurse stopped him, explaining that Jessica was stable, sedated, that he could see her soon. He came back to the waiting area and saw me. For a moment, I thought he might hit me. Instead, he just looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. She's going to be okay, he said quietly. No, thanks to either of us. We sat in silence for a long time. Claire arrived. Then Victoria Martinez. Then, surprisingly, Marcus Chen, who Jessica's roommate had apparently called. I heard what happened, Marcus said to me. This isn't your fault. Isn't it? Jessica's been suicidal before. In college, after we broke up. She didn't go through with it then, but she talked about it. This is about her, not you. I pushed her to this. No, Richard said heavily. I pushed her to this. I spent 18 years teaching her that love was a transaction. You just held up a mirror and she didn't like what she saw. A doctor emerged from the emergency room. Family of Jessica Whitmore? Richard stood. That's me. She's asking for someone named David. Everyone turned to look at me. I felt frozen. You don't have to go, Rachel said quietly. You don't owe her anything. But I stood anyway. Followed the doctor down a corridor that smelled of antiseptic and fear. Stopped outside a room with a small window. Jessica lay in the bed, pale and small and hooked up to various monitors. Her eyes were closed. I almost turned around. David. Her voice was barely a whisper. I stepped inside. I'm here. I'm sorry. She opened her eyes, and they were clearer than I expected. I'm sorry for everything. For what I said. For who I am. Stop. Please. You were right to leave me. You were right about all of it. I'm not a good person. Jessica. But please don't take my dad's house. Please. He's all I have left. I'll do anything. I'll sign whatever papers you want. Stop, I said again, more firmly. Just stop. I pulled up a chair, sat beside her bed. Outside, I could hear monitors beeping, nurses talking, the ambient sounds of a hospital at night. My mother died when I was 9, I said quietly. Car accident. Drunk driver. After she died, my father threw himself into work. He was a software engineer at Microsoft, made good money. But he was never home. So I raised my sister. I made her lunches, helped with homework, went to parent-teacher conferences when I was 15 years old. David, let me finish. When I was 17, my father remarried. A woman named Patricia who seemed nice at first. Turned out she'd been having an affair with my dad for 2 years before my mom died. The night I found out, I asked my father if he'd loved mom at all. You know what he said? Love is a luxury. Compatibility is what matters. He chose Patricia because she didn't challenge him, didn't ask for emotional labor, didn't need anything from him except financial security. Jessica was crying silently. I swore I'd never be like him, I continued. I swore I'd find someone who loved me for me, not for what I could provide. And I thought that was you. At the bachelorette party, when I heard you talking about me like I was a retirement plan, like you'd calculated the exact return on investment of our marriage, my voice cracked. It was like hearing my father's voice coming out of your mouth. I didn't mean it, Jessica whispered. Maybe not. But you said it. And I can't unknow that. So what happens now? I was quiet for a long time, watching the monitors trace her heartbeat across the screen. Now I forgive the loan. Again. For real this time. Jessica's eyes widened. What? I forgive the loan. Your father keeps the house. We both move on with our lives. I don't understand. Why would you? Because I'm not my father. And I'm not going to let you turn me into him. I stood to leave. Jessica grabbed my hand, surprisingly strong for someone who'd nearly died hours earlier. David, can we try again? I'll do better. I'll be better. I swear. No. I pulled my hand gently free. I believe you'll try. I believe you want to be better. But I can't be part of that journey. Every time I look at you, I'll hear that recording. I'll wonder if you're calculating something. I'll never trust you, and you deserve someone who can. I don't deserve anything. You deserve a chance to become who you want to be. Just not with me. I walked out of the room, past Richard, who was standing in the hallway. Thank you, he said quietly. For forgiving the loan. Don't thank me. Use it. Use it to help her get the help she needs. Real help. Not just therapy, but the kind of deep work that changes who you are. I will. I promise. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city lights reflected off wet pavement, turning Portland into something almost beautiful. Rachel was waiting by her car. You okay? She asked. No. But I will be. What you did in there, forgiving the loan, that took guts. Or maybe I'm just tired of being angry. Either way, I'm proud of you. We stood there for a while, not talking, just being. My phone buzzed. A text from Martin. Saw your email about forgiving the loan. Are you sure about this? I typed back, more sure than I've been about anything in weeks. 3 months later, I was still in Portland, but Jessica wasn't. Claire told me she'd moved to California, started intensive therapy, enrolled in a mindfulness program. Richard sold his business to one of his employees and semi-retired, spent more time working on the house. The company went public successfully. My net worth increased by a factor of 20 overnight. I became, technically, a billionaire. I also started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee meetings and casual dinners. I was learning to trust again, slowly. One evening, I got an email from Jessica. The subject line was, amends. David, I know I have no right to contact you. My therapist says I shouldn't, that I need to let you go completely. But I wanted you to know that I've been working on myself. Really working. I've realized that my mom's death taught me to see relationships as transactions because that felt safer than vulnerability. Safer than risking real loss again. I can't undo what I said or who I was when we were together. But I'm trying to become someone different. Someone who knows that people aren't assets or investments or retirement plans. Someone who can love without calculating the return. I'm not asking for another chance. I'm not asking for anything except maybe the knowledge that you're doing okay. That despite everything, you found some peace. Thank you for forgiving my dad's loan. Thank you for being kind when I didn't deserve kindness. Thank you for showing me, through your actions, what integrity actually looks like. I hope you find someone who loves you the way you deserve to be loved. Completely. Without calculation. Without reservation. Take care of yourself, David. Jessica. I read the email 3 times. Then I wrote back, Jessica, I'm glad you're getting help. I'm glad you're learning to be vulnerable. Those are hard lessons, and I respect you for doing the work. I'm doing okay. Better than okay, actually. I've learned some things too, mainly that revenge and justice aren't the same thing. That sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away without burning everything down. I don't regret leaving. I don't regret calling off the wedding. But I do regret how close I came to destroying your father's life to make a point. That's not who I want to be. I hope you find peace. I hope you find love that doesn't scare you. And I hope that one day, you can forgive yourself the way I've tried to forgive you. Take care, Jessica. I mean that sincerely. David. I hit send before I could second guess myself. 6 months after that, I was at a coffee shop in downtown Portland when I saw her. Jessica, laughing with a group of friends, looking lighter somehow. Happier. She saw me too, and for a moment, we just looked at each other across the crowded cafe. She smiled. I smiled back. No words needed. Then she turned back to her friends, and I went back to my coffee, and that was that. Sometimes I think about what might have been if she hadn't said what she said at that bachelorette party. If I hadn't overheard. If we'd gotten married, had kids, built a life together based on a foundation of her quiet calculation and my willful ignorance. Would it have lasted? Would she have eventually loved me, or would I have always been a means to an end? I'll never know. And I've made peace with that. Life isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions, making difficult choices, and trying not to become a monster in the process of protecting yourself. I didn't marry Jessica Whitmore. I didn't ruin her father. I didn't become my father. In the end, maybe that's victory enough. In the end, I learned that winning isn't about crushing those who hurt you, it's about refusing to let their actions turn you into someone you're not. Jessica taught me what I didn't want, and in doing so, freed me to find what I did. Sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to hold the line, and when to let it go. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's the courage to choose who you become in the face of betrayal. And the person I chose to be? Someone who could walk away with integrity and tact, knowing that true victory isn't measured in revenge, but in the peace of knowing you stayed true to yourself when it would have been easier not to. Story 2.
Oops, I guess I sent your wedding invitations to the wrong addresses. My cousin laughed after I wouldn't make her my maid of honor. Aunt Carol sighed. Just a silly mistake. I smiled and nodded. That evening, I made some strategic moves, a few phone calls to the right people. By 5 a.m., she woke up to something she never imagined. Oops, I guess I sent your wedding invitations to the wrong addresses. My cousin laughed after I wouldn't make her my maid of honor. Aunt Carol sighed from the sofa, not even looking up from her phone. Just a silly mistake, Jennifer. Madison didn't mean anything by it. I smiled and nodded, watching Madison's smirk grow wider. She thought she'd won. 3 months of planning, 200 hand-calligraphed invitations listing the wrong venue, sent to my fiancé's entire family, my college friends, even my boss. The wedding was in 6 days. These things happen, I said softly, gathering my purse. I should go. Lots to fix. Madison stood up, blocking my path to the door. You know, Jen, if you just made me maid of honor like family tradition dictates, I would have been more careful. But you chose your college roommate over blood. She said college roommate like it tasted rotten. Bryn is my best friend. Bryn is nobody. I'm your cousin. I was at your 7th birthday party. I held your hair when you got food poisoning at prom. Blood matters, Jennifer. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother, just got a call from the Hendersons. They're confused about the venue? Call me. Another buzz. My future mother-in-law, sweetheart, is the wedding at St. Michael's or Riverside Gardens? Your invitation says St. Michael's, but your mother told me Riverside last month. St. Michael's was a derelict church 40 miles away that had been closed for 5 years. I looked at Madison. She was examining her manicure, that satisfied smile never leaving her face. Aunt Carol had moved on to scrolling through Facebook, already bored with the drama she'd helped create by giving Madison access to my wedding planning folder when I'd stupidly left it at their house during Sunday dinner. Well, I said, I really should go handle this. That evening, back at my apartment, I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and made some strategic moves, a few phone calls to the right people. My mind raced through everything I knew about Madison, every secret she'd ever trusted me with, every corner she'd cut, every lie she told. Because here's the thing about Madison, she wasn't just vindictive. She was sloppy. And she'd made 3 critical mistakes. First, she'd underestimated me. Second, she'd forgotten that I worked in corporate law, specifically in contract litigation. Third, and this was the big one, she'd forgotten about Portland. I pulled out my laptop and began searching. By midnight, I had what I needed. By 3 a.m., I'd made the necessary calls. By 5 a.m., Madison woke up to something she never imagined. The first call came from her boss at Hartley & Associates, the prestigious marketing firm where she'd landed her dream job 8 months ago. I know because she'd posted about it 17 times on Instagram, each caption more unbearable than the last. I didn't hear the conversation, obviously, but I heard about it. Because in a town like ours, news travels faster than wildfire, especially when it involves someone as loud as Madison. She'd lied on her resume. Not a small lie, a massive, structural fabrication. That bachelor's degree from Northwestern? Never happened. She'd attended for 1 semester before dropping out, but she'd listed herself as a graduate with honors. The marketing certification from that fancy New York program? Also fiction. How did I know? Because 3 years ago, drunk at a family barbecue, she'd confessed the whole thing to me, swearing me to secrecy. Everyone exaggerates on their resume, she'd slurred. Besides, I'm good at my job. The degree doesn't matter. I'd kept that secret for 3 years. Until now. One anonymous tip to her employer's HR department, along with a helpful suggestion that they verify her credentials, and the dominoes started falling. By 9 a.m., she was fired. By 10 a.m., the story had reached my mother, who called me in tears. "Jennifer, did you hear about Madison? She's devastated. They fired her over some misunderstanding about her degree." "That's terrible," I said, stirring sugar into my coffee. "These things happen." Carol is beside herself. "You should call Madison, offer some support. I know you two had that silly argument about the wedding, but family is family." "Of course, Mom. I'll reach out." I didn't reach out. The second wave hit Madison at noon. A letter arrived by courier at Aunt Carol's house, where Madison still lived despite being 28 years old. It was from the Oregon State Bar Association. See, Madison had another secret. 2 years ago, she'd briefly dated a lawyer named Derek Chen. Sweet guy, too good for her, but he'd been smitten. When they broke up, she cheated on him with a bartender named Kyle. Derek had been crushed. But before their relationship imploded, Madison had convinced Derek to let her borrow his bar credentials for a side project. She'd used his information to notarize several documents for a friend's real estate deal. Unauthorized practice of law, forgery, fraud, take your pick of charges. Derek never knew because Madison had used his old law school apartment address, collected the copies herself, and covered her tracks. Until I made a few inquiries, found Derek's current contact information, and sent him a carefully worded email asking if he'd authorized certain notarizations 2 years ago. Attached were copies of the documents, ones I'd helped Madison's friend obtain from county records under the guise of needing them for estate planning advice. Derek filed a complaint within hours. The Bar Association investigation moved quickly. Their letter informed Madison she was under investigation for unauthorized practice of law and identity theft. My phone rang at 1 p.m. It was Aunt Carol, screaming so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "What did you do? What did you do to my daughter?" "I'm sorry, Aunt Carol, I don't understand. Don't play innocent with me, Jennifer Marie Thompson. Madison just got a letter from the Bar Association. Someone reported her about that Derek situation. That was 2 years ago. Nobody knew about that except family. I truly don't know what you're talking about. Madison mentioned dating a lawyer, but, you vindictive little snake. Your wedding invitations get mixed up and you destroy my daughter's entire life?" The call disconnected. My phone immediately rang again. Madison this time. I answered. "Hey, Mads. I heard you're having a tough day. You destroyed me." Her voice was hoarse from crying. "You destroyed my entire life because of a stupid mistake with some invitations. Do you understand what you've done? I've lost my job. I might face criminal charges. Over wedding invitations?" "That does sound disproportionate," I agreed. "If someone did that to you, you're admitting it?" "I'm not admitting anything. I'm just saying it would be disproportionate if someone orchestrated all this over wedding invitations. But who would do something so calculated? So methodical? So cold?" She was breathing hard. "I'll tell everyone what you did." "What did I do, exactly? Make a phone call suggesting someone verify public records? Send an email asking a legitimate question? Madison, I work in law. Everything I did was perfectly legal. Everything you did, on the other hand. You're a psychopath. And you're unemployed. We all have our crosses to bear. Oh, and Madison? You should check your email. I think you have a message from Portland. I hung up. Portland. The third mistake. 4 years ago, Madison had spent 6 months working at a startup in Portland. She told everyone it was a strategic career move, but she'd actually fled there after a situation in our hometown got too hot. A situation involving her then boyfriend's credit cards, which she'd somehow gotten hold of and used for a shopping spree totaling $6,000. The boyfriend, Tyler Brooks, had been too embarrassed to press charges. His wealthy parents had paid off the debt and made Madison sign an agreement that she'd pay them back $500 a month until the debt was cleared. She'd paid exactly 3 installments before vanishing to Portland, leaving no forwarding address. The Brooks family had written it off as a loss, too proud to hire a collections agency over what they considered trashy family drama. But I found Tyler on LinkedIn 6 months ago, and we'd grab coffee. Just catching up, nothing serious. He'd mentioned his parents were still bitter about the Madison situation, especially since she'd recently bought a new Mercedes. Clearly she had money, but they'd never seen a cent of repayment. I'd filed that information away. Useful, but not urgent. Until now. I'd sent Mrs. Brooks a friendly email that morning, mentioning I'd run into Tyler and heard about their unfortunate situation with Madison. I attached documentation of Madison's recent purchases, that Mercedes, a Bahamas vacation, designer handbag she posted constantly on social media, along with a copy of the repayment agreement she'd signed. I also mentioned that Madison had recently lost her income source, so if they were considering legal action to recoup their losses, now would be the time before she had nothing to collect. Mrs. Brooks responded within an hour, "Thank you for this information, Jennifer. Our attorney will be in touch with Madison." By 3 p.m., Madison had received her third communication of the day, a letter from the Brooks family attorney demanding immediate payment of $5,500, the remaining debt plus interest, or they would file a civil suit and pursue criminal charges for theft and fraud. My phone exploded with messages. "Aunt Carol, you're dead to this family." "My mother, Jennifer, what is happening? Carol says you've orchestrated some kind of attack on Madison. This isn't like you." "My brother, Mom's freaking out. What's going on?" "Bryn, my actual best friend and maid of honor, I just heard Madison's having the worst day ever. I'm assuming that's your handiwork? Remind me never to cross you." I responded only to Bryn, "I have no idea what you're talking about. But justice works in mysterious ways." She sent back a skull emoji and, "You're terrifying. I love you." The next 3 days were a blur. I had to make 200 phone calls correcting the venue situation. Thankfully, everyone found it hilarious once they understood it was sabotage, and once word spread about Madison's catastrophic day, people were remarkably sympathetic to me. Madison, meanwhile, spiraled. The Bar Association investigation intensified. Her unemployment claim was denied because she'd been fired for cause. The Brooks family attorney filed their civil suit. She had to sell her Mercedes. Aunt Carol stopped speaking to my mother, which actually made holiday planning easier. The family split into factions, Team Jennifer, most people, and Team Madison, basically just Aunt Carol and one weird uncle who nobody liked anyway. But I wasn't done. See, Madison had one more secret. The biggest one. The nuclear option. I'd been saving it, unsure if I'd need to use it. On day 4, Aunt Carol showed up at my apartment. She didn't knock. She pounded on the door so hard my neighbor poked his head out to check if everything was okay. I opened the door. "Aunt Carol. This is unexpected. You need to stop." She pushed past me into my apartment. "I don't know how you're doing this, but you need to stop. Madison is on antidepressants now. She can't sleep. She can't eat. You've destroyed her." "I haven't done anything." "Liar." She spun around, her face red. "Everyone knows it's you. The timing is too perfect. The day after the invitation incident, everything falls apart. You're behind this. Can you prove that?" "I don't need to prove it. I know. You're a monster, Jennifer. Your own cousin. Your own blood. Madison sabotaged my wedding. The most important day of my life. She made a mistake. She laughed about it. She said if I'd made her maid of honor, she would have been more careful. That's not a mistake, Aunt Carol. That's premeditated sabotage. That's malicious. So you destroy her entire future? Her career? Her reputation? You could have just had a conversation with her. Worked it out like adults." I sat down on my sofa, gesturing for her to sit. She remained standing. "Aunt Carol," I said carefully, Let me ask you something. When Madison stole from Tyler Brooks, did you encourage her to make it right? Her face went pale. That was different. When she lied on her resume, did you tell her it was wrong? Everyone exaggerates. When she used Derek's credentials to notarize documents, did you warn her that was illegal? Silence. You've enabled her for years. Every bad choice, every shortcut, every lie, you've covered for her. Made excuses. Told her it was fine, that everyone does it, that she deserved special treatment because she's family. And now you're surprised that someone finally held her accountable? She's my daughter. And I'm your niece. Where was this protective energy when she sabotaged my wedding? Where was this outrage? Aunt Carol's eyes filled with tears. Please, Jennifer. Please just stop. Whatever else you have planned, just let it go. She's learned her lesson. Has she? Yes. Look at what you've done to her. She's broken. I stood up, walked to my kitchen, and pulled out my phone. I showed Aunt Carol a screenshot from 3 hours ago, Madison's Instagram story. A photo of a cocktail with the caption, "When life gives you lemons, make a margarita." Hashtag down but not out, hashtag stronger than ever. Does that look broken to you? Aunt Carol stared at the image. She's just trying to stay positive. She's mocking this. She thinks it's temporary. She thinks she'll bounce back because she always does. Because people like you always protect her from consequences. What else do you want from her? Nothing. I'm done. Aunt Carol's relief was visible. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. I knew you had a good heart. I'm not done as a favor to you. I'm done because there's nothing left to do. Madison will face legal consequences for her actions. She'll have to rebuild her career without lies on her resume. She'll have to pay back the Brooks family. Those are natural consequences, not revenge. But you started it. You reported her. I reported facts. I asked questions. If Madison had been innocent, nothing would have happened. The fact that everything collapsed so quickly just shows how unstable her life was. She built her entire existence on lies, and I just nudged one card in the house. Aunt Carol left without another word. The next day, 2 days before my wedding, I got a call from an unknown number. Jennifer Thompson? Speaking. This is Detective Maria Cortez with the Portland Police Department. I'm calling about Madison Riley. We understand you two are related? My heart stopped. Yes, she's my cousin. Is she okay? She's fine. But we need to ask you some questions about a fraud investigation. Do you have time to talk? This wasn't part of my plan. Fraud investigation? During her time in Portland, Ms. Riley was employed by a startup called Tech Vision Solutions. The company went bankrupt 8 months after she left, and during the bankruptcy proceedings, significant financial irregularities were discovered. We're investigating several former employees, and your name came up. My name? I've never been to Portland for business. I don't know anything about Tech Vision Solutions. Ms. Riley listed you as a reference on her employment application. She also listed you as her emergency contact. We're speaking to everyone connected to her during that time period. I see. What kind of irregularities? I can't discuss details of an ongoing investigation. But I can tell you that Ms. Riley had access to company credit accounts, and there were several unauthorized charges during her tenure. When we tried to contact her, we discovered she'd provided a false permanent address. That sounds serious. It is. The company lost approximately $40,000 to fraudulent charges. If you have any information about Ms. Riley's activities during that period, we'd appreciate you coming forward. I really don't know anything, Detective. We weren't close during that time. But you're close now? Not particularly. We had a falling out recently. Over what, if you don't mind me asking? My wedding. She sabotaged my invitations because I didn't make her my maid of honor. There was a pause. That seems petty. She can be petty. Ms. Thompson, let me be direct. We have evidence that Ms. Riley engaged in systematic fraud during her employment at Tech Vision. We're building a case, but we need people who knew her then to provide context. If she contacted you during that period, if she sent you gifts or money, if she seemed to have unexplained income, that's relevant. I thought back. Madison had sent me a designer purse for my birthday in 2021, during her Portland stint. I thought it was suspiciously generous. She did send me an expensive gift during that time. A purse. I still have it. What brand? Gucci. Retail around $2,000. And this was unusual? Madison wasn't making much money then. Or so she claimed. Would you be willing to provide a statement? Detective Cortez, I need to be honest with you. Madison and I are in conflict right now. If I provide a statement, it could look like revenge. Ms. Thompson, we're investigating financial crimes. Your personal relationship doesn't change the facts. Did she or did she not give you a gift she couldn't afford during a period when she had access to company funds? She did. Then we'd like to talk to you. Can you come to Portland next week? I'm getting married in 2 days. Can it wait? Congratulations. Yes, we can schedule something for next week. I'll have someone from our office reach out to arrange a time. After the call ended, I sat in silence for 10 minutes. Portland was something I didn't know about. The tech vision fraud was new information. Madison's web of lies was apparently even more extensive than I'd realized. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt slightly sick. I called Bryn. Hey. Wedding panic or regular panic? Portland Police Department just called me about Madison. What? Why? I explained. Oh my goodness, Bryn breathed. So she committed actual serious fraud? Apparently. And they want you to testify? Just provide a statement. About the purse. Are you going to do it? I don't know. It feels like too much. The job, the bar association, the Brooks family, that's all stuff she did, and I just brought it to light. But this Portland thing? They found that on their own. It has nothing to do with me. Except they want you to help build their case. Yeah. What does your gut say? I stared out my window at the street below. A couple walked past, holding hands, laughing about something. Normal people living normal lives, not destroying their cousins or contemplating testifying in fraud investigations. My gut says she deserves whatever consequences come from her actions. But my heart says I've done enough. Then maybe you have. You can tell the detective you need time to think about it. You're getting married in 2 days. Focus on that. She was right. I called Detective Cortez back and explained I needed time to consider my involvement. She was understanding. Take your time, Ms. Thompson. But understand this, with or without your statement, we have enough to charge Ms. Riley. Your information would strengthen our case, but it's not make or break. However, if she did defraud a company of $40,000, she should face consequences. That's not revenge. That's justice. The wedding happened on Saturday. It was perfect. Every detail I'd planned for months came together beautifully. Bryn gave a hilarious maid of honor speech. My husband, I can call him that now, cried during his vows. My mother cried. My brother's girlfriend cried. Even our stoic photographer got misty-eyed. Aunt Carol and Madison didn't attend. Neither did the weird uncle. Everyone else came, including people who'd received the wrong invitations initially. They thought the whole story was hilarious. Your cousin tried to sabotage your wedding and ended up getting her own life destroyed instead? That's incredible. I didn't correct them. I smiled and thanked them for coming. During the reception, my mother pulled me aside. I need to tell you something. Good news or bad news? Complicated news. Carol called me yesterday. Madison's been charged with fraud in Portland. Something about her old job. Did you know about this? The police called me. They want a statement. Are you going to give one? I don't know yet. My mother studied my face. She's known me for 30 years, she can read me better than anyone. You knew, didn't know you? When you, she stopped. Oh, Jennifer. I didn't know about Portland. That came out during their own investigation. But everything else? The job, the bar association, the Brooks family? I met her eyes. She sabotaged my wedding, Mom. She laughed about it. Aunt Carol called it a silly mistake. Nobody defended me. Nobody held her accountable. So you decided to burn her entire life to the ground. I decided to let the truth come to light. Everything that's happening to her is a consequence of her choices, not mine. I didn't make her lie on her resume. I didn't make her commit fraud in Portland or steal from Tyler Brooks or forge legal documents. I just stopped protecting her from the consequences. That's a fine line, sweetheart. Maybe. But it's the right line. My mother hugged me. I'm not saying you're wrong. Madison needed to learn this lesson. But I hope you can let it go now. For your own sake. This kind of anger, it eats at you. I'm not angry anymore. Good. Because holding on to rage, even justified rage, only hurts you in the end. She was right, of course. But standing there in my wedding dress, watching my guests dance and celebrate, I didn't feel angry. I felt something closer to satisfied. Not victorious, that would be too strong. Just balanced. Madison had tried to ruin my day. Instead, she'd ruined her own life by building it on lies that I'd simply exposed. The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Italy. We left our phones off most of the time, just enjoying each other and the food and the incredible views. When I finally checked my messages on day 10, there were 43 texts, 16 missed calls, and 9 voicemails. Most were from Aunt Carol. The voicemails escalated from angry to desperate. You need to call off the Portland police. Jennifer, Madison could go to prison. Please, I'm begging you, talk to the detectives. She's your family. How can you be so cruel? Your mother won't help. Your brother won't help. You're her only chance. I deleted them all. One voicemail was from Madison herself. I almost deleted it without listening, but curiosity won. Jennifer. Her voice was flat, exhausted. I know you hate me. I understand why. What I did to your wedding was horrible, and I'm sorry. I should have apologized immediately, but I was angry and stupid. I thought family meant we could hurt each other, and it wouldn't matter because we'd always make up. I was wrong. But please, I'm begging you, don't give a statement to Portland. They're talking about charging me with wire fraud and grand theft. I could get 10 years. 10 years, Jennifer. For mistakes I made when I was 24 and desperate and stupid. I know I deserve consequences, but not this. Please. I'll do anything. I'll apologize publicly. I'll pay for your honeymoon. I'll never speak to you again. Whatever you want. Just please don't send me to prison. The message ended. I played it again. Then a third time. My husband found me on our hotel balcony, staring at my phone. Everything okay? I told him about the voicemail. He sat down beside me, taking my hand. What are you going to do? I don't know. Part of me thinks she deserves everything she's getting. But 10 years in prison? For fraud she committed when she was 24? What does your lawyer brain say? That she committed serious crimes and should face appropriate consequences. Wire fraud and grand theft are felonies. The justice system exists for this reason. And what does your heart say? I was quiet for a long moment. That I didn't start this to send her to prison. I started it to hold her accountable for sabotaging my wedding. Everything else that came out, that was already there. I didn't create those crimes. But if I testify, I'll be actively contributing to her imprisonment. That's different than just exposing her lies. So don't testify. But she did defraud that company. They lost $40,000. She hurt people. That's not your responsibility to fix. The police have their case. They said your statement would strengthen it, not make or break it. You can choose not to be involved. Aunt Carol will say I'm still responsible. That I started the avalanche. Aunt Carol isn't objective. And honestly? Madison's life fell apart so quickly because it was built on lies. That's not your fault. But I'm the one who pushed the first domino. You reported her lies to her employer and to people she defrauded. That's not pushing dominoes. That's just refusing to be a bystander anymore. He was right. I knew he was right. I called Detective Cortez from Italy. Ms. Thompson. I've been trying to reach you. I'm on my honeymoon. I just got your messages. Congratulations. Listen, we need to schedule that interview. I'm not going to provide a statement. Silence. Can I ask why? Because this isn't my fight. Madison defrauded your company. She hurt those people. But my involvement in bringing her other issues to light was about holding her accountable for sabotaging my wedding. I'm not interested in being a witness in a criminal trial for something that happened before I even knew about it. Ms. Thompson, she gave you stolen property. That purse? Purchased with company funds. That makes you a witness. You can subpoena me if necessary. But I'm not volunteering my cooperation. You understand we have enough evidence to charge her without you? Then charge her. I'm not stopping you. I'm just not helping you. May I speak frankly? Please. Your cousin hurt you. You hurt her back by exposing her lies. Now you have a chance to really make her pay, and you're walking away. Why? Because revenge only works if you know when to stop. I exposed her lies. She lost her job, her reputation, faces civil suits, and a bar association investigation. That's proportional to what she did to me. But testifying to help imprison her for a decade? That crosses a line from justice to vengeance. And I don't want to be that person. That's very mature of you. Or very tired. I've spent 6 months planning a wedding, 3 weeks dealing with Madison's sabotage, and 2 weeks on a honeymoon trying to forget about all of it. I'm done. Whatever happens to her now is between her and the legal system. I'm out. Understood. If we need you, we'll subpoena you. I understand. I hung up feeling lighter than I had in weeks. My husband kissed my forehead. Feel good? Yeah. I think I do. We spent the rest of our honeymoon actually enjoying ourselves. No drama. No revenge plotting. Just two people starting their life together. When we got home, there was a letter waiting from Aunt Carol. A real letter, handwritten, 6 pages long. The first 4 pages were rage. How dare I destroy Madison's life? How dare I turn the family against her? How dare I refuse to help when Madison faced prison? I was vindictive, cruel, heartless, a monster. The 5th page shifted. Aunt Carol admitted Madison had made mistakes. She admitted she'd enabled her daughter for years, covering for her, making excuses. She admitted that Madison's life falling apart was partly her fault for never teaching her accountability. The 6th page was an apology. Not for Madison's actions, Aunt Carol made clear that Madison would have to apologize for herself, but for how Aunt Carol had handled it. For dismissing my hurt over the wedding invitations. For calling it a silly mistake. For not defending me when Madison laughed about sabotaging the most important day of my life. The letter ended with, I don't expect you to forgive us. I don't even expect you to respond to this letter. But I needed you to know that I see now what I couldn't see then. Madison became who she is because I protected her from consequences. You didn't destroy her life. You just stopped protecting her from herself. And as much as I hate what's happened, as much as it breaks my heart to watch my daughter suffer, I understand why you did it. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. You deserved better from your family. I read the letter 3 times. Then I called my mother. Did you see Aunt Carol recently? Last week. She's different. Quieter. I think this situation has forced her to do some hard reflection. She sent me a letter. An apology. She's been going to therapy. Madison too, actually. Court-ordered, part of the Brooks family settlement. Apparently it's helping. How's Madison doing? Honestly? I don't know. Carol doesn't talk about her much. I know she's working at a coffee shop, trying to scrape together money for the restitution. The Portland charges are still pending, but their lawyer thinks they might be able to plead down to probation if she pays back what she stole. That's good, is it? I can't tell if you want her to suffer or recover. Both? Neither? I wanted her to face consequences. She's facing them. I don't wish prison on her, but I'm also not losing sleep over her having to work at a coffee shop after defrauding multiple people. Fair enough. Are you going to respond to Carol's letter? I don't know yet. I thought about it for a week. Finally, I wrote a short response. Aunt Carol, thank you for your letter. I appreciate your honesty and your apology. You're right that Madison's life fell apart because it was built on lies, not because I exposed them. I don't regret what I did, but I also don't take pleasure in Madison's suffering. I hope therapy helps both of you. I hope Madison learns from this and builds a better life, an honest one. I hope someday we can be family again, though I don't know when that might be. For now, I need distance. I need to focus on my marriage, my career, my own life. I need to let go of the anger I've been carrying. Maybe you need the same. Take care of yourself. Jennifer. I sent it and felt the final weight lift off my shoulders. 6 months later, I got a message on Facebook from Madison. Just one line, I'm sorry for what I did to your wedding. You deserved better. I hope you're happy. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back, thank you. I hope you're doing better. She responded immediately, working on it. Day by day. I thought that would be the end of it. A brief exchange, closure of sorts, and we drift back into our separate lives. But 3 weeks after that message, something happened that I never expected. My boss called me into her office on a Tuesday afternoon. Sandra Mitchells was a formidable woman, Harvard Law, 20 years at the firm, partner at 35. She didn't do small talk. Jennifer, I need to discuss a sensitive matter with you. My stomach dropped. In corporate law, sensitive matter usually means someone's getting fired or sued. Of course. We received an email last week from someone claiming to have information about your involvement in a case of corporate espionage and fraud. The room tilted. What? Sandra pulled out a printed email. According to this anonymous source, you used your position at this firm to access confidential client information, which you then used to sabotage a family member's career. The email specifically mentions Madison Riley and claims you obtained protected information about her employment verification through our database access. My mouth went dry. That's not true. I never used firm resources to. I know. Sandra's expression softened slightly. I pulled your access logs. You haven't accessed our employment verification database in 8 months, and when you did, it was for legitimate client work. This allegation is completely fabricated. Then why are we having this meeting? Because whoever sent this email also copied our managing partners, 3 senior associates, and mysteriously, several of your client contacts. They're trying to damage your reputation. Madison. That would be my guess, yes. Though the email came from an anonymous account and was routed through several proxy servers. Whoever sent it knew enough to make it difficult to trace. I leaned back in my chair, processing this. Madison was striking back. Of course she was. I'd exposed her lies and ruined her life. Did I really think she'd just accept it? What happens now? Now? Nothing. The allegation is baseless, and our IT department is working on tracing the email's origin. But Jennifer, I need to know, is there any truth to the broader claim? Did you orchestrate the exposure of your cousin's fraudulent credentials? This was the moment. Lie, and maintain plausible deniability. Tell the truth and face potential ethical questions about my conduct. I chose honesty. Yes and no. I reported factual information to relevant parties. Her employer, when I learned she'd lied on her resume. The Bar Association, when I learned she'd committed identity fraud. The Brooks family, when I learned she'd never repaid them for theft. I didn't fabricate anything. I just stopped keeping her secrets. Sandra studied me for a long moment. And the timing? Right after she sabotaged your wedding? The timing was intentional. The information was true. That's a distinction many people wouldn't appreciate. I know. Jennifer, speaking as your boss, what you did was legally permissible but ethically complicated. Speaking as a woman who once had a sister ruin her engagement party, I understand completely. She smiled slightly. But speaking as your mentor, I need you to understand something. Revenge, even justified revenge, has consequences. Madison is clearly not accepting defeat gracefully. What should I do? Document everything. If she escalates, we'll pursue legal action for defamation and harassment. But more importantly, be prepared. People who feel cornered don't always think rationally. Sandra was right to warn me. 2 days later, my car was keyed. Long, deliberate scratches across both sides, deep enough to require repainting. The security camera footage from my apartment complex showed a figure in a hoodie approaching around 2 a.m., but the angle wasn't good enough to identify them. I filed a police report. The officer taking my statement was sympathetic but realistic. Without clear video evidence or witnesses, there's not much we can do. Do you have any enemies? Anyone with a grudge? My cousin. We've had a falling out. You think she'd damage your car? I think she's capable of it, yes. He wrote it down, but I could see he didn't think much would come of it. He was probably right. The following week, someone created a fake Instagram account using photos scraped from my real account. The fake account posted inflammatory content, racist memes, aggressive political statements, cruel comments about people's appearances. Then it started following and messaging people I knew, including co-workers and clients. I discovered it when a colleague tentatively asked me if everything was okay, and whether I'd really meant what I'd posted about immigration policy. I didn't post anything about immigration policy. Oh. Well, your Instagram account has been very active. And honestly, Jennifer, some of it is really concerning. I pulled up Instagram on my phone. The fake account, at jennifer.m.thompson2, had gained 40 followers and made 30 posts in 3 days. Each post was more inflammatory than the last, clearly designed to make me look like a bigoted, cruel person. I reported the account to Instagram, but the automated response said it could take several days to review. In the meantime, the damage spread. People who didn't know me well assumed the account was real. People who did know me were confused and concerned. My mother called, upset. Jennifer, what is happening with your social media? Your Aunt Carol sent me screenshots of posts she says you made, And I told her there's no way you'd write those things, but it's a fake account, Mom. Someone's impersonating me. Madison? Probably. This has to stop. Both of you need to just let this go. I did let it go. I'm not the one sending fake emails to her employer or creating fake social media accounts. She's escalating. Maybe if you apologized. For what? Telling the truth about her fraudulent behavior? For the way it's all played out? For how much she's lost? No. The word came out harder than I intended. I'm not apologizing for holding her accountable. She made choices, Mom. Bad choices. Illegal choices. And now she's making more bad choices by harassing me instead of rebuilding her life. I'm not responsible for any of it. My mother sighed. I just want my family back. Then Madison needs to stop. Not me. The harassment continued. Anonymous emails were sent to my clients suggesting I was mentally unstable. My husband's workplace received a call claiming he was having an affair. Someone left a dead flower arrangement on our doorstep with a card reading, "Congratulations on your marriage. Hope it lasts." Each incident was small enough to be deniable, strategic enough to cause maximum stress. Madison, or whoever she'd recruited to help her, was good at this. Better than I'd expected. My husband wanted to hire a private investigator. We need proof it's her. Then we can get a restraining order. We already know it's her. But we can't prove it. That's what matters legally. He was right, of course. So we hired an investigator named Robert Chen, a former police detective who specialized in cyberstalking cases. Robert was thorough, methodical, and expensive. The fake Instagram account was created using a VPN, but there are metadata traces that suggest it originated from a coffee shop IP address in your area. If your cousin works at a coffee shop, that's promising. The anonymous emails all came from temporary email addresses, but they were sent during specific time windows, mostly late evening, between 10 p.m. and midnight. Does that match when your cousin would have free time? I thought about Madison's schedule. She'd always been a night owl, staying up until 2 or 3 a.m. even when she had morning commitments. Yes. That matches. Good. Give me 2 weeks. If she's behind this, I'll find proof. While Robert investigated, life became surreal. I'd wake up not knowing what fresh attack awaited. My work suffered, not dramatically, but enough that Sandra noticed and quietly reduced my client load to give me breathing room. Take care of this situation, she told me. The firm supports you, but you need to handle it before it impacts our reputation more seriously. Bryn came over one evening with wine and takeout, finding me on my couch surrounded by documentation of every harassment incident. This is insane, she said, flipping through printed screenshots. She's unhinged. She's desperate. There's a difference. You're defending her? No. I'm just saying I understand it. I destroyed her life. She's striking back. It makes sense from her perspective. You didn't destroy her life. She did that herself. I pulled the first thread. Bryn set down the papers and looked at me seriously. Do you regret it? Exposing her lies? No. But I regret not anticipating this. I thought consequences would humble her. Instead, they enraged her. What are you going to do? Whatever I have to. Robert says he's close to proving she's behind the harassment. Once we have proof, we file for a restraining order and pursue charges if necessary. And if that doesn't stop her? I didn't have an answer. Robert delivered his report on day 13. The evidence was damning. IP addresses traced to Madison's workplace and Aunt Carol's home, metadata from photo uploads showing they came from Madison's phone, timestamps matching her known schedule, and, most importantly, a mistake. One of the anonymous emails had been sent from an account that briefly synced with Madison's primary email address before being disconnected. It's not airtight, Robert admitted, but combined with a pattern of harassment following your confrontation, any judge would grant a restraining order. You might also have grounds for a civil suit, defamation, harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress. How much would a civil suit cost? Depends. Could be anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 in legal fees, and that's if she doesn't fight it hard. If she does, costs escalate. And what would I win? Monetary damages, possibly. But Madison doesn't have money, so you'd likely get a judgment she couldn't pay. The real value is sending a message, back off or face consequences. I took the report home and showed my husband. We talked for hours about what to do. File charges? Pursue a restraining order? Sue her? Or try one more time to end this peacefully? In the end, I chose an option Robert hadn't suggested. I called Aunt Carol. Jennifer. Her voice was cold. What do you want? To talk about Madison's harassment campaign. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. The fake Instagram account. The anonymous emails. The vandalism. I have proof it's her, Carol. Enough proof for criminal charges. Silence. I don't want to do this, I continued. I don't want to send Madison to jail or sue her into bankruptcy. But I also won't let her terrorize me because she's angry about facing consequences for her own actions. You ruined her life. She ruined her life. I just stopped covering for her. And now she's making it worse by adding harassment and cyberstalking to her list of crimes. What do you want from me? Make her stop. I'll give her one chance, to end this. If the harassment stops immediately, I won't press charges. I won't file for a restraining order. I'll let it go. But if it continues, if there's even one more incident, I'm going to the police with everything I have. And you think she'll listen to me? She's living with you. She depends on you. Use that leverage. You're asking me to threaten my own daughter. I'm asking you to protect her from herself. Again. Because apparently that's your full-time job. The call ended badly, but I'd said what I needed to say. 2 days passed with no new incidents. Then 4 days. Then a week. On day 8, Madison herself called me. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Jennifer. Madison. My mother told me you have evidence. That you're threatening to press charges. I'm not threatening anything. I'm stating facts. If the harassment continues, I'll pursue legal action. If it stops, I won't. You've already destroyed everything? What more do you want? I want you to stop making your situation worse. You've lost your job, your reputation, and you're facing multiple legal issues. Adding cyberstalking and harassment charges won't help you. It'll just make everything harder. You don't get to lecture me about making things harder. Then don't listen to me. Listen to your mother. Listen to your lawyer. Listen to anyone with common sense. Madison, I'm done fighting with you. I'm done thinking about you. I want to move on with my life, and you should want to move on with yours. How am I supposed to move on? Everything I built is gone because of you. Everything you built was fake. It was always going to collapse eventually. I just accelerated the timeline. She was crying now. I can't get hired anywhere. Even the coffee shop, they're cutting my hours because someone called claiming I stole from my last employer. Was that you? No. But it was probably someone who Googled your name and found the court records from the Brooks family lawsuit. That's public information, Madison. Your criminal record is following you because it exists, not because I'm making calls. Everything's falling apart. Then stop making it worse. Accept responsibility. Make restitution. Rebuild honestly. Or don't, it's your choice. But leave me out of it. The harassment stops now, or I go to the police. That's your choice too. I hung up before she could respond. The harassment stopped. No more fake accounts, no more anonymous emails, no more vandalism. Madison had apparently decided that adding more legal problems wasn't worth whatever satisfaction she got from tormenting me. Life slowly returned to normal. Instagram finally removed the fake account. My car got repaired. The whispers at work died down. My husband and I started talking about buying a house, maybe starting a family in a few years. 3 months after my call with Madison, I saw her at the grocery store. We were in adjacent aisles. I was comparing pasta sauce prices, she was reaching for canned soup. Our eyes met through the gap in the shelves. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she gave me a small nod and walked away. Not friendly, not hostile. Just acknowledgement. We existed in the same space, we'd hurt each other in different ways, and now we were moving forward separately. I nodded back and returned to my shopping. That's how it ended, not with dramatic confrontation or tearful reconciliation, but with a silent agreement to exist in parallel rather than in conflict. Maybe someday we'd be family again. Maybe we'd never speak. Both options felt acceptable. We haven't spoken since. Maybe we will someday. Maybe we won't. But the rage is gone, replaced by something quieter. Not quite forgiveness, but not hatred either. Just distance. My wedding photos are beautiful. My marriage is strong. My career is thriving. Madison's sabotage didn't ruin the most important day of my life, it just revealed her character and forced me to reveal mine. I don't regret what I did. Madison needed consequences. She got them. But I'm glad I knew when to stop. Revenge is satisfying in the moment, but it's letting go that actually sets you free. The story could have ended differently. I could have testified in Portland, helped send her to prison, watched her life completely destroyed. Part of me wanted to. But the better part of me, the part that wants to sleep peacefully at night, that wants to build a life based on integrity rather than vengeance, chose to walk away. Madison's crimes will catch up with her one way or another. The Portland case is proceeding without me. The Bar Association investigation concluded that while her actions were fraudulent, they don't meet the threshold for prosecution since Derek didn't suffer financial harm, though she's been permanently barred from working in any legal capacity. The Brooks family got their restitution through monthly payments. Her former employer flagged her fraudulent credentials with industry databases, making it harder to lie again. She's living with consequences. Real ones. Lasting ones. But not ones that destroy every chance she has at rebuilding. And me? I'm living my life. Happily married. Successfully employed. Surrounded by people who love me and would never sabotage my happiness for petty reasons. Madison taught me something valuable. Sometimes the people who hurt you are suffering from their own lack of character, not from malice toward you specifically. She didn't sabotage my wedding because she hated me. She did it because she felt entitled to be maid of honor, and when she didn't get what she wanted, she lashed out. Like a toddler throwing a tantrum, except with adult consequences. I'm not a monster for holding her accountable. I'm not cruel for exposing her lies. I'm just someone who refused to be a victim and refused to let bad behavior go unpunished. But I'm also someone who knew when to stop. When to let the legal system handle what I couldn't. When to prioritize my own peace over continued vengeance. In the end, that's the victory I'm most proud of, not that I made Madison suffer, but that I protected my own happiness while doing it. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do isn't seeking revenge, but knowing when enough is enough. Holding people accountable for their actions doesn't make us cruel, it makes us honest about what behavior we'll accept in our lives. But the real strength comes from recognizing that our peace matters more than anyone else's punishment. When we build our lives on truth, integrity, and genuine connections, we create something that can't be sabotaged by petty cruelty. The invitations may have been sent to the wrong addresses, but the right people showed up anyway, because real relationships aren't derailed by someone else's malice. Focus on the people who celebrate your joy, not the ones who try to steal it. That's where happiness lives.
Story 3.
My grandmother's lawyer called me into his office and said, she left specific instructions, you're not to attend the funeral or receive anything from the estate. I nodded and left without arguing. 2 weeks later, my cousins were celebrating their inheritance at a family brunch when the lawyer arrived with a second envelope. My aunt posted a photo with the caption, "Perfect day with the people who actually cared." That was yesterday. This morning, every single one of them received a certified letter that made my uncle call me screaming, "You manipulative snake, you planned this all along. You destroyed this family." Uncle Richard's voice cracked through the phone speaker. 20 years of loyalty, and you. I set my coffee down carefully on the kitchen counter. The morning sun filtered through the window, casting geometric patterns across the marble. Outside, a cardinal landed on the fence post, its red feathers brilliant against the gray wood. "I have no idea what you're talking about," I said. "Don't play innocent with me, Harper." The sound of papers rustling came through. "This letter says the estate audit found financial irregularities dating back 7 years. 7 years. And guess whose signature authorized the investigation? Yours." My heart stuttered. "What? You signed the documents 3 months ago. The lawyer has your signature, your notarized consent to review all family trust transactions. You've been planning this since before Mom died." The cardinal flew away. I watched its trajectory until it disappeared into the neighbor's oak tree. 3 months ago, I'd been in Boston for a medical conference. I hadn't signed anything. "Richard, I never authorized any audit." "Then explain how your signature is on these documents." His breathing grew labored. "The lawyer says we have to repay everything." "Everything, Harper. The vacation house in Cape Cod? Gone. The investment accounts? Frozen. And it's all because of your vindictive." I hung up. My hands shook as I set the phone on the counter. The last time I'd seen my grandmother alive was 6 months ago, at my cousin Madison's wedding. Gran had pulled me aside near the dessert table, her fingers cold around my wrist. "They think I don't notice," she'd whispered. Her breath smelled like the peppermints she always carried. But I see everything, Harper. I always have. What are you talking about? She patted my hand, her rings clicking together. You'll understand soon enough. Just remember, sometimes the cruelest kindness is letting people have exactly what they want. Then she'd walked away, leaving me standing there with a plate of wedding cake I suddenly didn't want to eat. My phone buzzed. A text from my cousin Madison, we need to talk. Now. Then another from my cousin Tyler, what did you do? And another from Aunt Diane, you're dead to this family. I poured the coffee down the sink and grabbed my car keys. If my signature was on those documents, I needed to see them myself. The law office of Morrison and Associates occupied the third floor of a converted brownstone in downtown Portland. I'd been here twice before, once for my grandfather's will reading 15 years ago, and 2 weeks ago when they told me Gran wanted me excluded from everything. The receptionist looked up as I entered, her expression carefully neutral. Ms. Whitmore. Mr. Morrison said you might stop by. Did he? It wasn't a question. He's with another client, but he left these for you. She handed me a manila folder, already unsealed. Inside were photocopies. The first document showed my signature on a form titled Request for a State Audit and Financial Review. The signature looked perfect. Too perfect. I'd broken my right hand in a skiing accident 2 years ago, and ever since, my capital H had a slight waver to it. The signature showed no such imperfection. Someone had forged it. But who? And more importantly, why would they want an audit that apparently revealed my family had been stealing from Gran? I flipped through the other papers. Bank statements. Wire transfers. A highlighted section showed regular payments from the family trust to various accounts, $4,000 here, $7,500 there, $12,000 to something called Riverside Consulting LLC. My Uncle Richard's construction company. The dates went back 7 years, just like he'd said. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions, systematically moved from Gran's trust into accounts controlled by my aunt, uncle, and cousins. But I hadn't reported it. So who had? Ms. Whitmore? The receptionist's voice pulled me back. Mr. Morrison can see you now. James Morrison was 63, with silver hair and the kind of face that inspired trust. He'd handled my family's legal affairs for 30 years. As I entered his office, he stood and gestured to the leather chair across from his desk. I assume Richard called you, he said, settling back into his seat. Among others. I apologize for the confusion. Your grandmother's instructions were very specific, but they're unfolding in ways I didn't fully anticipate. My signature on that audit request is fake. He didn't look surprised. I know. The room tilted slightly. You know? Your grandmother forged it. Or rather, she had someone forge it. She brought me the documents 3 months ago, said you consented to the investigation but wanted to remain anonymous. I ran it by my colleague who handles forensic accounting, and when we discovered the irregularities, I followed protocol. The state requires we report suspected elder financial abuse. So Gran knew. She knew they were stealing from her. For years, apparently. Morrison opened a drawer and pulled out another folder, this one significantly thicker. She documented everything. Every conversation where your uncle pressured her to invest in his company. Every time your Aunt Diane asked for emergency loans that were never repaid. She even recorded some phone calls. That's legal in Oregon? With one-party consent, yes. He slid the folder across the desk. She wanted you to have this. Said you'd know what to do with it. I opened the folder. The first page was a handwritten letter in Gran's distinctive cursive. My dearest Harper, if you're reading this, then my little performance worked exactly as planned. I'm sorry for excluding you from the funeral, I know how that must have hurt. But I needed them to feel safe, to celebrate without restraint, to show the world exactly who they are. You're probably wondering why I chose you. The answer is simple, you're the only one who never asked me for anything. When you needed money for medical school, you took out loans instead of coming to me. When your car died, you bought a used Honda with your own savings. You called me every Sunday, not because you wanted something, but because you actually wanted to talk. That's how I knew you'd understand what I'm doing. The audit will reveal what they've stolen. The lawyers will handle the legal aspects. But there's more to this than money, my dear. There's a lesson about consequence, about the weight of choices, about what happens when people convince themselves that cruelty is justified if they benefit from it. The second envelope Morrison delivered to the brunch yesterday contained their inheritance, $100 each. Not because I'm cruel, but because they need to understand that love isn't an inheritance plan. They'll receive the letters this morning explaining that every penny they stole must be repaid, with interest. But you, Harper? You get something different. Check the deed records for 447 Maple Street. All my love, Gran. My hands trembled as I set the letter down. 447 Maple Street. What's there? Morrison smiled, the expression almost sad. Your grandmother's childhood home. She bought it back in 1983, been renting it out ever since. Never told anyone in the family about it. The deed transferred to your name on the day she died. It's worth approximately $1.2 million. The office was too quiet. Somewhere outside, a car horn honked, then another. Normal city sounds. Everything was normal except my entire understanding of the last 2 weeks. There's more, Morrison continued. The investment portfolio she set up in your name 20 years ago, when you were 8 years old. She added to it every year, never mentioned it to anyone. Current value is just over $3 million. I couldn't breathe. $3 million. Plus the life insurance policy naming you as beneficiary. Another $500,000. But she told you to exclude me from the funeral. From the estate. From the estate reading, he corrected gently. Not from what she actually left you. She wanted your family to think you got nothing while they divided up what they thought was everything. She wanted them to post their celebrations on social media, to gloat publicly, to demonstrate their true character. Then, when the audit results came through, when they learned they'd have to repay every stolen dollar or face criminal charges, she wanted them to realize I'd been provided for all along. Morrison nodded. She called it teaching the lesson they refused to learn. Your Uncle Richard leveraged her loneliness after your grandfather died. He convinced her to invest in his company, then use the money for personal expenses. Your Aunt Diane created fake invoices for caregiving services she never provided. Your cousin Tyler set up shell companies to funnel money out of the trust. And Gran knew. The whole time. She was a remarkably sharp woman, even at 86. She told me once that the hardest part wasn't discovering their theft, it was accepting that they saw her as nothing more than a source of money. I thought about the Sunday phone calls. How Gran would ask about my patients, about the new technique I was learning, about whether I tried that Italian restaurant she'd read about. We'd talk for hours sometimes, about books and politics and the garden she was planning. Never once did she mention feeling used. Never once did she let on that she knew. When did she figure it out? I asked. About 8 years ago. She hired a private investigator after noticing inconsistencies in her account statements. Once she had proof, she started planning. Morrison leaned forward. She wanted you to understand something, Harper. This isn't about revenge. It's about justice. They stole from an elderly woman who trusted them, who loved them despite their flaws. The law will hold them accountable, but she wanted them to experience the emotional weight first. To feel what it's like when the people you counted on turn out to be different than you believed. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Madison, please call me. I can explain everything. They'll try to turn this around, Morrison said, watching my face. They'll claim your grandmother was manipulated, that she wasn't in her right mind, that you poisoned her against them. They'll hire lawyers and challenge everything. Can they win? No. The evidence is overwhelming, and her mental competency was evaluated by 3 separate doctors in the months before her death. She made sure of that. He paused. But they can make your life difficult for a while. The question is whether you want to pursue criminal charges or accept restitution. I looked at Gran's letter again. Her handwriting was steady, each word carefully formed. This wasn't the writing of a confused old woman. This was deliberate, calculated, loving in its own fierce way. What would happen if I pursued criminal charges? Your uncle could face 5 to 10 years for elder abuse and embezzlement. Your aunt, similar. Your cousins as accessories, probably 2 to 5 years each depending on their level of involvement. My phone rang. Uncle Richard again. I declined the call. She gave me a choice, I said softly. She could have pressed charges herself before she died. She wanted you to decide how the story ends. She said you'd earned that right. The cardinal was back on the fence post outside Morrison's window. It cocked its head, bright eye examining something in the grass below. Then it dove, snatched up an insect, and flew away. I need time to think, I said, standing. Morrison stood as well. Take all the time you need. The statute of limitations doesn't run out for another 3 years. But Harper? Your grandmother was proud of you. She told me that constantly. Said you were proof that kindness isn't weakness, that choosing the harder right over the easier wrong actually means something. I left the office with Gron's letter and the deed to 447 Maple Street folded carefully in my purse. My phone had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I ignored all of them and drove to the address Gran had left me. The house sat on a tree-lined street in the historic district, a 3-story Victorian painted pale yellow with white trim. A for rent sign hung in the front yard, slightly crooked. The porch wrapped around 2 sides, and window boxes that had once held flowers now contained only dirt. I sat in my car across the street, engine off, watching. A woman emerged from the front door carrying a box, followed by a man with a lamp. Moving out, presumably. The lease must have ended. The architecture was stunning, ornate cornices, bay windows with original glass that caught the afternoon light and scattered rainbows across the porch. Gran had grown up here. She'd learned to walk on those steps, celebrated birthdays in that house, kissed my grandfather for the first time on that wraparound porch. She told me that story once, during one of our Sunday calls. How Grandpa had shown up with wildflowers he'd picked himself, how nervous he'd been, how she'd kissed him first because he was taking too long to work up the courage. Best decision I ever made, she'd said, laughing. Not waiting for him to decide. Just taking what I wanted. I'd laughed with her then, not understanding the weight of those words. Now I saw it differently. Gran had never been passive. She'd spent her entire life taking decisive action, whether it was kissing the boy she loved or orchestrating an elaborate plan to expose her family's betrayal. The woman came back out for another load. She saw me watching and waved uncertainly. I waved back, feeling like an intruder at my own property. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from Aunt Diane. Against my better judgment, I listened. Harper, sweetheart, I know you're upset. Her voice was sugar-sweet, the tone she used when she wanted something. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Your grandmother was confused toward the end, you know how elderly people get. She didn't understand what she was signing. That audit was based on falsified documents, we have proof. Our lawyer says we can have everything invalidated, but we need your help. Your family, Harper. We've always loved you like a daughter. Call me back, okay? We can fix this together. I deleted the message. My phone immediately rang again. Madison this time. I answered. Finally. Her voice was strained. Harper, listen, I had nothing to do with any of this. I swear. I didn't know Dad was. I never touched Gron's money. You have to believe me. Where are you right now? At Mom and Dad's house. Everyone's here. It's chaos. Dad's lawyer says the audit is fraudulent, that someone manipulated Gron's records. But then Mom started crying and admitted she'd taken some loans, and Tyler started yelling that everyone knew about the trust payments, and, Harper, it's falling apart. Everything's falling apart. In the background, I heard shouting. Richard's voice, then Diane's, then someone else I couldn't identify. Madison, I need you to be honest with me. Did you know they were taking money from Gran? Silence. Then, quietly, I suspected. But I didn't ask questions because I didn't want to know for sure. That's just as bad, isn't it? Yes, I said. It is. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. Dad says you forged Gron's signature on the audit request. Says you orchestrated this whole thing to steal the inheritance. Despite everything, I almost laughed. And do you believe that? Another pause. No. You're not like us. You never were. Something crashed in the background, followed by more shouting. I have to go. Harper? I'm sorry. For all of it. I know that doesn't mean much now, but I am. She hung up. I sat there until the movers finished loading their truck and drove away. The house looked empty now, waiting. My house, apparently. A piece of Gron's past that she'd kept secret, preserved, and then gifted to me with instructions to check the deed records. What else had she hidden? I drove to the county records office and requested all documents related to 447 Maple Street. The clerk, a bored-looking woman in her 50s, returned with a folder containing deeds, tax records, and building permits going back 40 years. The house had been in Gron's family since 1952. Her parents had bought it when she was a baby. She'd grown up there, married my grandfather there, lived there until they bought their first house together in 1960. Then it had sold to a couple named Henderson, who'd owned it until 1983, when Gran bought it back. The purchase price in 1983 was $47,000. According to the most recent assessment, it was worth $1.2 million. She'd held onto it for 42 years, quietly collecting rent, paying taxes, never mentioning it to anyone. I thought about what that meant. For 4 decades, she'd maintained this secret. Through my grandfather's death, through holidays and birthdays, through every family gathering where Richard complained about money or Diane hinted at needing help. She'd had this asset the entire time and never used it as leverage, never dangled it as incentive for better treatment. She'd simply kept it, waiting. But there was something else. A document dated 2019, just 4 years ago. A safe deposit box registered to the property address, with me listed as the authorized accessor upon Gran's death. "Excuse me," I said to the clerk. "This safe deposit box. Where would it be located?" She squinted at the document. "First National Bank, downtown branch. You'll need photo ID and the death certificate to access it." I had both in my car. The drive took longer than it should have. Traffic was heavy, and I kept replaying Morrison's words. She wanted them to experience the emotional weight first. What kind of person plans something like that? What kind of love requires such calculated strategy? Then again, what kind of children systematically steal from their elderly mother? 30 minutes later, I stood in the vault of First National Bank while a clerk inserted 2 keys into a medium-sized safe deposit box. The metal door swung open, revealing a single large envelope. Inside were more letters. Dozens of them, each labeled with a date and name. To Harper, to be opened if Richard contests the audit results. To Harper, to be opened if Diane claims incompetency. To Harper, to be opened if Tyler attempts legal action. To Harper, to be opened if Madison requests forgiveness without restitution. And finally, in Gran's handwriting across a sealed envelope, to my Harper, to be opened when you need to remember why this matters. I opened that one first. My dearest girl, if you're reading this, you're probably overwhelmed. The revelations are cascading faster than you can process them, and you're wondering whether I was cruel or just. The answer is both, and neither. What I learned in 86 years is that people become who they are through a series of small choices. Richard chose to see me as a resource rather than a mother. Diane chose comfort over integrity. Tyler chose to follow their example rather than question it. These weren't one-time decisions, they were patterns reinforced over decades. I gave them opportunities to choose differently. So many opportunities. 5 years ago, I told Richard the first was worried about money. He didn't offer to help, he offered to manage my investments for a fee. 3 years ago, I mentioned to Diane that I felt lonely. She suggested I hire a companion service. She didn't visit more often. She suggested I pay someone. 2 years ago, Tyler asked to borrow money for a business opportunity. I said no and offered to help him develop a real business plan instead. He never spoke to me about it again. But you, Harper. You called it every Sunday. You sent me articles you thought I'd enjoy. You invited me to your apartment for dinner even though it meant cleaning and cooking after a 12-hour shift at the hospital. You never asked for anything? So I'm giving you everything? Not just money and property, but proof. Proof that choosing kindness isn't naive. Proof that integrity actually matters. Proof that the long game always wins. The other letters contain evidence and strategy. Use them if you need to. But know this, whatever you decide, I'm proud of you. You turned out exactly how I hoped you would. And Harper? Don't let them make you bitter. That would be their final victory, and I won't allow it. You're better than they are, and you're strong enough to stay that way. With infinite love, Gran. I sat on the cold floor of the bank vault and cried. Not quiet tears, but the ugly, gasping kind that comes from a grief too big to contain. The bank clerk tactfully retreated, closing the vault door most of the way to give me privacy. Gran had known exactly how this would unfold. She'd mapped out every possible move my family might make and prepared countermoves. She turned her death into a chess game where she'd anticipated every play. But she'd also left me the choice of whether to play at all. I gathered the letters, replaced them in the box, and left the bank. My phone showed 52 missed calls now. The entire family tree was lighting up, everyone desperate to reach me, to explain, to justify, to manipulate. I drove home and poured myself a glass of water. Then I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. A quick search showed me what I needed to know. The criminal statute of limitations for elder financial abuse in Oregon was 6 years for most charges, though civil suits could extend beyond that. My family had stolen from Gran for 7 years. Some of it was beyond criminal prosecution, but all of it could be pursued civilly. Or I could accept restitution and walk away. Or I could let them keep what they'd taken and simply cut them off. The choices sprawled before me like roads diverging in a dark wood. My phone rang. An unknown number. I answered. Ms. Whitmore? This is Detective Sarah Chen with the Portland Police Department, Financial Crimes Division. We've received a referral from the Morrison Law Firm regarding potential elder abuse. I'd like to schedule a time to speak with you about pressing charges. How did you get my number? It's listed as the contact for the estate. Mr. Morrison indicated you're the victim's primary heir and would be handling any legal proceedings. I haven't decided about pressing charges. I understand. But I should let you know that we've begun a preliminary investigation based on the evidence already provided. If the district attorney decides to pursue this independently, your cooperation would be helpful but not strictly necessary. My heart hammered. You can charge them without my consent? Elder abuse is a crime against the state, not just against the individual. If we have sufficient evidence, yes. But it would be much stronger with your support. After she hung up, I sat very still. Gran had set something in motion that I couldn't stop even if I wanted to. The state was involved now. The legal machinery had started grinding. All I could control was how much I participated. I opened the other letters from the safe deposit box. The one labeled for Richard's contest of the audit results contained recordings. Actual audio files on a USB drive, with transcripts. Gran had recorded him pressuring her to invest in his company, to sign over authority, to trust him with her finances. The dates matched the bank transfers perfectly. The letter for Diane's incompetency claim included medical records from 3 separate doctors, all evaluating Gran's mental state in the months before her death. All concluded she was sharp, oriented, and fully competent. There were also emails, Diane asking for money while claiming she was broke, then posting vacation photos on social media 2 weeks later. Tyler's file contained corporate records showing the shell companies he'd created, all linked back to him through his business partner's testimony. Gran had interviewed the partner before she died, got everything on record. Madison's file was thinner. A single letter, handwritten. Harper, Madison will ask for forgiveness without offering restitution. She'll cry and say she didn't know, didn't understand, wasn't involved. Some of this may even be true. But she knew enough. She saw her father's new truck, her mother's jewelry, her brother's renovated house. She knew they weren't wealthy enough for those things. She knew I wasn't giving them money as gifts. She chose not to ask questions because ignorance was comfortable. Complicity through silence is still complicity. If she offers real change, if she repays what her family took, if she testifies honestly, if she acknowledges her role, then perhaps forgiveness is warranted. But forgiveness without accountability is just enabling. You'll know what to do. Gran, I set the letter down and looked at my phone. Madison had called 4 more times. I listened to her voicemails. The first, Harper, please. I need to talk to you. This is destroying my parents. The second, Dad's lawyer says they might go to prison. You can stop this. You're the only one who can stop this. The third, why aren't you answering? We're family. Doesn't that mean anything to you? The fourth, her voice breaking, I read the posts online. Someone leaked the story to a true crime blog. They're calling us the inheritance theft ring. My friends are texting me. Harper, please, you have to help us fix this. I deleted all 4 messages. Then I called Detective Chen back. I'd like to schedule that interview, I said. And I have additional evidence to provide. The investigation took 3 months. During that time, my family hired lawyers, attempted to negotiate, threatened civil suits of their own, and finally, when everything else failed, showed up at my apartment. Uncle Richard looked smaller than I remembered. He stood in my hallway, his face gray, his suit rumpled. Please, he said. Just talk to us. Behind him, Aunt Diane clutched her purse like a shield. Madison hovered near the stairs, unable to meet my eyes. Tyler hadn't come. You can come in, I said. 5 minutes. They settled uncomfortably on my couch, the same couch Gran had helped me pick out when I first moved in. She'd sat right where Diane was sitting now, drinking tea and telling me stories about her own first apartment. The DA offered a plea deal, Richard said without preamble. 3 years for me, 2 for Diane, probation for Tyler. Madison wasn't charged because they couldn't prove she knew. But we lose everything. The house, the retirement accounts, all of it goes to repaying the estate. Plus restitution, Diane added, her voice hollow. Another $400,000 on top of what we stole. Borrowed, Richard corrected automatically, then caught himself. Took. What we took. Why are you here? I asked. Because the DA says the deal is contingent on you agreeing, Madison said. You're the victim. You have to consent to the terms. And if I don't? Then we go to trial, Richard said. And the DA says we'll get maximum sentences. 8 years for me, 6 for Diane. We'll lose everything either way, but we'd also lose our freedom. I looked at them, really looked. Diane had aged a decade in 3 months. Her designer clothes, the ones I now knew were bought with stolen money, hung looser on her frame. Richard's hands shook slightly, and the expensive watch he'd flaunted at family gatherings was conspicuously absent. Madison looked like she hadn't slept in weeks, dark circles under her eyes making her look older than her 28 years. Did you love her? I asked. Gran. Did you actually love her, or was she just a bank to you? Diane started crying. Real tears this time, not the manipulative kind I'd seen her use so often. Of course we loved her. She was my mother. Then why did you steal from her? The question hung in the air. Richard looked at his hands. Diane's crying intensified. Madison stared at the floor. It wasn't stealing at first, Richard finally said. His voice was barely above a whisper. She offered to invest in the company. I thought she wanted to help. She seemed proud when I told her about the expansion plans, about hiring more crew. Then the economy tanked, contracts fell through, and I borrowed a little more to keep things afloat. Then a little more for payroll. And then. He spread his hands helplessly. Before I knew it, I was in so deep I couldn't see a way out. I thought I'd pay it all back. I really did. You had 7 years, I said. You never paid back a single dollar. I know. His voice cracked and I saw moisture gather in his eyes. I know, and I have to live with that. Every day I have to live with knowing I stole from my own mother. But Harper, please. We made mistakes. Terrible, unforgivable mistakes. But we're family. Mom would want you to show mercy. The presumption of it, using Gran to manipulate me even now, made something cold settle in my chest. Gran spent 2 years planning this, I said, each word deliberate. She documented everything, recorded conversations, built an airtight case. She gave me a choice about how this ends, but she also made sure you'd face consequences. She told me in her last letter that love without accountability isn't really love at all. That's rich, Diane said, her tears evaporating as anger took over. Love without accountability. She left you millions and destroyed us. Where's the love in that? She left me what I never asked for. You took what you were never offered? We're her children. Diane stood, her voice rising. We deserved. You deserved Sunday phone calls, I interrupted. You deserved to be listened to be cared about. Instead, you measured your worth in her bank account and found yourselves wanting. That's not her fault. That's yours. Madison leaned forward, her voice urgent. Harper, what can we do? What would make this right? Nothing, I said quietly. That's the point. Some things can't be fixed. You broke her trust, exploited her loneliness, and stole from her while she was alive. She died knowing the people she'd raised saw her as a resource to be depleted. She also died knowing you'd inherited millions, Diane snapped, her grief turning to anger. She left you everything and set us up to fail. How is that fair? I never asked her for money. Not once. Because you didn't have to. You were the favorite, the perfect grandchild who could do no wrong. The rest of us had to fight for scraps while you got the throne. I got Sunday phone calls, I said. I got conversations about books and gardening and what she was making for dinner. That's what I got while you were forging invoices and creating shell companies. The silence stretched. Finally, Richard stood. Will you accept the plea deal? I thought about Gran's letter. About the choice she'd given me. About justice and mercy and whether they could coexist. Yes, I said. On 2 conditions. First, you publicly acknowledge what you did. Not in court where you're forced to, but in a statement to the family. Everyone needs to know the truth. Fine, Richard said. And second? Madison testifies fully and honestly about everything she witnessed, even if it implicates her parents more deeply. Madison went pale. Harper, those are my terms. Take them or go to trial. They took them. The family meeting happened 2 weeks later at Aunt Diane's house, the same house where we'd held countless Thanksgivings and Christmases. The living room where we'd opened presents as children now felt like a courtroom. 18 family members attended, cousins, Second cousins, spouses, even Gran's sister Eleanor, who'd flown in from Arizona specifically for this. I arrived early and positioned myself near the doorway, close enough to hear everything but far enough to maintain distance. The room buzzed with confused conversation. Most of them had no idea why they'd been summoned, just that Richard had called an emergency family meeting. Aunt Eleanor caught my eye from across the room. She was 83, sharp as ever, and the only person besides Gran who'd never asked me for anything. She gave me a small nod, and I understood, she knew. Somehow, she knew what was coming. Richard stood in front of the fireplace, same spot where Gran used to stand when she'd make her annual Christmas toast. The irony was unbearable. His hands trembled as he unfolded a piece of paper, the confession he'd written per my requirements. "Thank you all for coming," he began. His voice cracked on the first word. "I ask you here because I need to tell you something about Mom's estate. About what happened." The room grew quiet. I watched faces, curious, concerned, some already suspicious. Tyler sat in the corner, arms crossed, staring at the floor. He looked hollow, like something vital had been scooped out of him. "For the past 7 years," Richard continued, reading from his paper, "I've been taking money from Mom's trust without permission. Not borrowing. Taking. Stealing." The word seemed to hurt him physically. "I used it for my business, for personal expenses, for things I had no right to purchase with her money." Gasps rippled through the room. Cousin Jennifer's hand flew to her mouth. Second cousin Mark stood abruptly, then sat back down, too shocked to complete the movement. "I told myself it was temporary," Richard went on, his voice barely steady. "That I'd pay her back. But I never did. I just kept taking more. And I wasn't alone." He looked at Diane. She stood on shaking legs, clutching her own written statement. "I created fake invoices," Diane said, her voice thin. "For caregiving services I never provided. I billed Mom's estate for hours I never worked, medical supplies I never bought. Over 3 years, I stole nearly $200,000. Eleanor's sharp intake of breath was audible across the room. She stood, and for a moment I thought she might leave. Instead, she walked to the center of the room and turned to face everyone. "Did you know?" she asked Richard. "Did you know your mother was aware?" Richard's face crumpled. "Not until after she died. She never said anything. She just let us keep doing it. She documented it," I said from my place by the door. Everyone turned to look at me. "She knew for years. She recorded conversations, saved bank statements, built a case. She could have stopped you any time. She chose not to." "Why?" Jennifer asked, looking between me and Richard. "Why would she let it happen if she knew?" "Because," Eleanor said quietly, "my sister wanted them to have enough rope to hang themselves. She wanted to see how far they'd go, how much they'd take, whether they'd ever stop on their own." She looked at Richard with something between pity and disgust. "They never did." He didn't minimize. Didn't excuse. He told the truth about the years of systematic theft, the forged documents, the exploitation. Diane added her own confession, voice shaking, admitting to manipulation tactics she'd used to convince Gran she was needed, wanted, when really she just wanted access to the accounts. Tyler refused to attend but sent a written statement accepting responsibility. Richard read it aloud, Tyler's admission of creating shell companies, of laundering money through fake consulting firms, of enlisting his business partner in the scheme. Then Madison spoke. She told them about the conversations she'd overheard, about seeing bank statements left on the kitchen table, about the vacation photos that didn't match the "we're broke" sob stories. She talked about choosing willful ignorance because knowing the truth would require action she wasn't prepared to take. "I saw the numbers," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I saw Dad's new truck and Mom's jewelry and Tyler's house renovation. I knew Gran wasn't giving them that kind of money as gifts. But I didn't ask questions because I didn't want to know for sure. And that makes me complicit." She cried through most of it, but she didn't stop. Didn't soften the truth. She laid it all bare. When they finished, the room erupted. Cousin Mark started yelling about betrayal, about dishonoring Gran's memory. Jennifer demanded to know if any of them had ever actually loved Gran or if it had all been an act. Second cousin Paula, who'd always been close to Diane, shouted that everyone was being too harsh, that family forgives, that Gran would want unity not division. Gran wanted justice, Eleanor said, her voice cutting through the chaos. She spent 2 years planning this because she wanted all of you to understand what her children did. She wanted you to see them clearly. Some defended Richard and Diane, claiming Gran had been wealthy enough that the money didn't really matter, that prison time was too harsh, that families should handle these things privately. Others raged about betrayal, about elder abuse, about the corruption of everything Gran had built. The family fractured in real time, fault lines I hadn't known existed suddenly visible and widening. Cousins who'd been close for decades took opposite sides. Spouses argued. Someone threw a coffee mug, and it shattered against the fireplace. I left before it finished. I'd heard what I needed to hear, the truth spoken aloud, witnessed by people who mattered, recorded in the memories of a family that would never be the same. As I reached my car, Eleanor caught up with me. She moved remarkably fast for 83. "Your grandmother was proud of you," she said without preamble. "She called me 2 months before she died. Told me everything she'd planned. Asked me to watch over you if things got ugly." "Did you agree with what she did?" Eleanor considered this. "I think she did what she believed was necessary. And I think she was right. They needed to face consequences. The question is whether those consequences will teach them anything or just make them bitter." She patted my arm. "That's not your burden to carry, though. You just live your life well. That's the best vindication." The plea deal was finalized a month later. Richard got 3 years in minimum security. Diane got 2. Tyler received probation and community service. All of them would be paying restitution for the next 20 years. The true crime blog that had initially leaked the story did a follow-up piece. The Inheritance Aftermath: How One Woman's Deathbed Plan Exposed Family Greed. It went viral. My name was kept anonymous, but everyone in my family knew the truth. The calls and texts eventually slowed, then stopped. Madison tried to maintain contact, sending occasional messages asking how I was doing. I responded politely but briefly. Some wounds heal, some just scar. 6 months after Gran's death, I moved into the house at 447 Maple Street. I renovated the first floor into a reading room, the walls lined with bookshelves. Gran's favorites, mystery novels, historical biographies, poetry, occupied places of honor. On Sunday mornings, I made tea and sat in the window seat where Gran had sat as a girl. I imagined her here, young and full of dreams, never suspecting that one day she'd buy this house back and gift it to her granddaughter as proof that some things matter more than money. I found a local volunteer program that helps seniors with financial literacy and fraud prevention. 2 evenings a week, I taught elderly people how to recognize manipulation, how to protect their assets, how to identify when family members might be exploiting them. I used Gran's story, anonymously, with details changed, as a cautionary tale. A year later, I was leaving the community center after a workshop when I saw Madison standing by my car. "I'm not stalking you," she said quickly. "I called your office, and they said you might be here. I wanted to talk." "Okay." I testified at Dad's sentencing hearing last week. Told the judge everything I remembered. The prosecutor said it helped keep his sentence at 3 years instead of 5. "Good. Harper, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know I'm in therapy. Working on why I chose silence, why I let myself become complicit. It's hard work. Harder than I expected. It usually is. I also wanted to thank you." That surprised me. "For what?" "For holding us accountable. For not letting us get away with it just because we're family. I hated you for it at first. Genuinely hated you. But my therapist helped me understand that you gave me something nobody else in our family ever did." "What's that?" "The chance to actually change. To look at who I was becoming and decide to be someone different." She brushed tears away with the back of her hand. "I'm not asking to be in your life. I just wanted you to know that what you did mattered. It mattered to me." She walked away before I could respond. I stood in the parking lot, watching her go, Gran's words echoing in my mind. Sometimes the cruelest kindness is letting people have exactly what they want. My family had wanted the inheritance. They'd gotten it, and discovered it came with a price they weren't prepared to pay. But they'd also gotten something else, the opportunity to confront who they'd become. Whether they took that opportunity or not was up to them. I drove home to 447 Maple Street, to the house Gran had preserved for me, to the life I was building from the ruins of a family that had imploded under the weight of its own greed. The cardinal was back, perched on the fence post in the backyard. I watched it through the kitchen window while my tea steeped. It sang a few notes, clear and bright, then flew to the oak tree. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hi Harper, this is Claire from the Senior Center. One of your students wants to report suspected financial abuse by her son. Can you help?" I could. I would. Because Gran had taught me that sometimes love means saying no. Sometimes justice means holding people accountable. And sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't money at all, it's the courage to do what's right even when it hurts. I texted back, "Send me her contact information. I'll call her tonight." The cardinals sang again, and somewhere in the distance, I heard church bells ringing. Sunday morning, just like always. I poured my tea and settled into the window seat with a book, the same way Gran must have done 70 years ago. The inheritance she'd left me wasn't just property or money. It was proof that choosing integrity over comfort actually leads somewhere. That kindness isn't weakness. That the long game, played honestly, really does win. My family might never understand that. But I did. And in the end, that was enough. Moral: the deepest legacy we leave isn't measured in money or property, but in the principles we uphold and the choices we make when no one's watching. Real love requires accountability, and real justice makes room for redemption, even if that redemption is painful. When faced with a choice between comfortable silence and difficult truth, remember, the courage to do what's right, especially when it costs you something, is the inheritance that truly matters. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is refusing to enable those we care about, even if they can't see it that way. Choose to be someone who values integrity over approval, because in the end, the person you have to live with is yourself.
Story 4.
I collapsed during my wedding reception, gasping for air as guests screamed for an ambulance. When the doctor said, "This is definitely poisoning," my sister rushed to my bedside, clutching my fiancé's arm and whispering, "I'll take care of him while you recover." My parents nodded as she added, "She's always been dramatic, probably just food allergies." I could barely speak as the nurse called security. That was 4 hours after the cake cutting. By midnight, Detective Wilson was replaying the kitchen security footage, his face grim as it showed my sister injecting something into the exact slice marked for the bride. When my parents still insisted it was just a misunderstanding, the detective played the audio of her phone call to my fiancé. "Once she's gone, we can finally be together, just like we planned." My mother's screams echoed through the hospital as my sister was led away in handcuffs, still wearing her maid of honor dress. "Claire, sweetheart, can you hear me?" My mother's voice pierced through the fog, but something felt wrong about the way she said it. Too practiced. Too performative. I tried to nod, but my throat constricted like someone had wrapped wire around my windpipe. The hospital room spun in nauseating circles, and I could taste metal on my tongue. Through half-closed eyes, I watched my sister Amanda lean into Marcus, my fiancé, no, my husband now, and whisper something that made him pale. Detective Wilson stood at the foot of my bed, a tablet in his weathered hands. He was maybe 50, with salt and pepper hair and the kind of tired eyes that had seen too many family betrayals. "Mrs. Kendrick, I need you to listen very carefully. The substance in your system is oleander extract, mixed with a benzodiazepine compound. Someone wanted you unconscious first, then dead." "Detective, surely you're not suggesting," my father, Richard Hartley, stepped forward with that corporate boardroom authority he'd wielded my entire life. The same tone he'd used when he told me creative writing was a hobby, not a career, and that I should join his pharmaceutical company instead. "I'm not suggesting anything, Mr. Hartley. I'm stating facts." Wilson tapped the screen. "We have video evidence." Amanda's face crumpled in precisely the way she'd practiced since childhood whenever she wanted something. Tears on command, a skill she'd perfected by age 7. "This is insane. I would never hurt Emily. She's my sister. My best friend." Best friend. The words hit like acid. I wanted to laugh, but my diaphragm wouldn't cooperate. Best friend, like when she accidentally deleted my college application essays the night before the deadline. Best friend, like when she told my high school boyfriend I cheated on him with his brother, a complete fabrication that ended a 2-year relationship. Best friend, like when she convinced our parents I'd stolen money from Dad's wallet when we were teenagers, resulting in me being grounded for 3 months during the summer before senior year. "Then explain this." Wilson played the footage. The venue's kitchen appeared on screen, timestamp reading 6:47 p.m., 17 minutes before the cake cutting. Amanda glided in wearing her burgundy maid of honor dress, checking over her shoulder twice. She approached the multi-tiered white cake adorned with sugar flowers that had cost $3,000. Her hand moved with surgical precision, pulling a small syringe from her clutch. She injected the contents into the second slice from the left on the top tier, the slice specifically marked with a tiny fondant E for the bride. My mother gasped. My father's jaw went slack. "But Amanda?" She laughed. Actually laughed. "That's edited." Obviously edited. Anyone could see that. The venue uses bank-grade security precisely because they host events for people like your father, Wilson said flatly. The footage is time-stamped, watermarked, and has been verified by 2 independent forensic analysts. There's no editing. Then someone deepfaked it. Amanda's voice climbed an octave. Marcus, tell them. Tell them I was with you during that time. Marcus, who had been silent until now, stepped back from her touch as if she'd burned him. You told me you needed to check on Emily's makeup. You were gone for at least 15 minutes. Her face transformed from desperate innocence to something colder. You're turning on me now? After everything we planned? The room froze. Even the heart monitor seemed to pause. What did you just say? Wilson's pen hovered over his notepad. Amanda's eyes widened as she realized her mistake. Nothing. I didn't say anything. I'm in shock. My sister almost died, and you're all treating me like a criminal. We have more than the video. Wilson pulled out a plastic evidence bag containing Amanda's phone. You left this on the gift table. We obtained an emergency warrant given the severity of the crime. He pressed play on an audio file. Amanda's voice emerged from the speaker, clear as crystal. Once she's gone, we can finally be together, just like we planned. I'm tired of watching her get everything while I stand in the shadows. The company will be mine. You'll be mine. Everything she ever had will be ours. Marcus's voice responded, younger and eager. You promised it would look natural. A heart condition or something. I've been slipping her the sedatives for weeks. She thinks she's just stressed from wedding planning. Tonight's dose will finish it. Oleander is perfect, mimics heart failure, and with her anxiety medication on record, they'll think it was an interaction. Dad will need someone to lean on, and who better than his remaining daughter? The recording continued, but I couldn't hear it over the ringing in my ears. Weeks. She'd been poisoning me for weeks. The exhaustion I'd attributed to 12-hour workdays. The dizzy spells I'd blamed on skipping meals. The way my hands shook when I tried to review contracts. All of it was Amanda, slowly murdering me while helping me address wedding invitations. My mother's scream snapped me back to the present. She lunged at Amanda with a ferocity I'd never witnessed, her perfectly manicured hands reaching for my sister's throat. 2 nurses and a security guard pulled her back as she shrieked, You poisoned my daughter. My baby girl. Your baby girl? Amanda's composure shattered completely. She's always been your baby girl. The perfect daughter who got into Stanford while I barely scraped through state school. The brilliant one who Dad groomed to take over the company while I got a middle management title and a pat on the head. The golden child who got Marcus even though I saw him first. You never told me you liked him, I croaked, my voice barely audible. Each word felt like swallowing glass shards. I shouldn't have had to. You take everything. Amanda's face contorted with decades of accumulated resentment. You knew I worked in his building. You knew we had coffee every morning. But the second you met him at that conference, you made him fall for you with your perfect smile and your perfect life and your perfect everything. The pieces started assembling in my mind despite the poison-induced fog. Marcus and I had met 18 months ago at a biotech industry conference in San Diego. He'd approached me after my presentation on regulatory compliance frameworks, saying my ideas were revolutionary. We'd talked for hours, exchanged numbers, started dating within a week. It moved fast, too fast, I'd sometimes thought, but he'd been insistent about not wasting time when you found your person. I'd mentioned him to Amanda after our 3rd date. She'd smiled and said she was happy for me, that she'd actually introduced us in a way since she'd encouraged him to attend the conference. I thought it was sweet that she'd played matchmaker without even realizing it. You set us up. The realization hit harder than the poison. You pushed him toward me. Amanda's laugh was bitter and sharp. I told him exactly where you'd be, what sessions you'd attend, what you'd be wearing. I told him you were vulnerable after your last breakup, that you'd be impressed by someone who actually listened to your work talk. I gave him the blueprint to make you fall for him. Why? The question came out as barely a whisper. Because I wanted to see if I could. If I could make someone choose you, knowing I was pulling the strings. She wiped tears, real ones this time, from her face. But then he actually fell for you. Really fell. And suddenly my experiment became my nightmare. He stopped meeting me for coffee. Stopped answering my texts. Forgot my birthday. Everything became about Emily this and Emily that. Wilson nodded to the uniformed officers by the door. Amanda Hartley, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and assault with a deadly weapon. Wait. My father finally found his voice. Detective, surely we can discuss this. Amanda is clearly having a mental health crisis. We can get her help. Private care, the best facility. The best facility? I managed to push myself up on my elbows, ignoring the way the room tilted. She tried to kill me at my wedding reception, and you want to send her to a spa? Emily, don't be dramatic. My mother's voice had shifted from grief to damage control. Think about what this will do to the family. To the company. Richard Hartley's daughter arrested at a society wedding? The press will destroy us. I almost died. Each word required enormous effort. Your daughter, your other daughter, spent weeks poisoning me. She injected oleander into my wedding cake. And you're worried about the press? My father straightened his tie, that unconscious gesture he made before delivering bad news in boardroom meetings. We'll hire the best defense attorneys. Amanda clearly isn't well. With the right medical testimony, we can argue diminished capacity. She'll get treatment instead of prison, and we can all move forward. Move forward? I stared at him, this man I'd spent 32 years trying to impress. Just like we moved forward after she framed me for theft? After she sabotaged my college applications, oh yes, I figured that out eventually, after she destroyed my relationship with Tyler Hansen? You always believed her. Always chose her side because she was sensitive and I was strong enough to handle it. That's not fair, Emily. My mother's voice trembled. We loved you both equally. Equally? I laughed, and something in my chest cracked, maybe literally. You believed her over me every single time. You taught her that lying worked, that manipulation worked, that she'd never face consequences as long as she cried on cue. Wilson's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression darkened further. Mrs. Kendrick, there's something else you should know. There's more? I couldn't imagine what else could possibly. We pulled Amanda's financial records with the warrant. 3 weeks ago, she purchased a life insurance policy on you. $2 million, with herself as the beneficiary. The room went silent except for the heart monitor's steady beeping. That's impossible, my father said. You can't just buy a policy on someone else. You can with their signature. Wilson held up another evidence bag, this one containing a document. Emily, did you sign this application for supplemental wedding insurance through your company's benefits program? I squinted at the paper. The signature looked like mine, the same looping E, the same efficient scrawl. Maybe? Amanda had me sign a bunch of papers for vendor contracts. I trusted her since she was coordinating with a wedding planner. This isn't wedding insurance. It's a life insurance policy, and the only beneficiary is Amanda Hartley. Wilson's voice gentled. She forged documents to make it look like the company's standard spousal coverage, but it's a private policy. If you died tonight, she would have received $2 million within 30 days. And I would have gotten the company, Amanda said quietly, all pretense of innocence gone. Dad promised me. He said if anything ever happened to Emily, I'd finally have my chance to prove myself. To step out of her shadow. My father's face went ashen. I said if Emily ever decided she didn't want the CEO position, same thing. Amanda's voice was eerily calm now, the voice of someone who had nothing left to lose. You made it conditional. If Emily doesn't want it. Not when you're ready, Amanda. Not you've earned this, Amanda. Everything in our family has always been conditional on Emily's choices. Emily's preferences. Emily's schedule. So you decided to make the choice for me? I couldn't process the magnitude of the betrayal. This wasn't a snap decision, a moment of jealous rage. This was premeditated, calculated, and involved forging documents, researching poisons, mapping out timelines. How long have you been planning this? Amanda met my eyes for the first time since the footage played. Since you got engaged. 6 months of research, of finding the right dosage, of building the perfect cover story. You always said I lacked follow-through. I wanted to prove you wrong. Officers moved to cuff her, but Wilson held up a hand. What about Marcus? All eyes turned to my husband of approximately 6 hours, who stood pressed against the far wall like he wanted to melt into it. Marcus has been playing both sides, Amanda said. Her voice had shifted again, taking on a vindictive edge. You want to know something fascinating, Emily? He proposed to you the day after I told him I was ready to go public with our relationship. We weren't, Marcus stammered. We were sleeping together the entire time you were dating. Amanda smiled, and it was the cruelest expression I'd ever seen on another human's face. Every business trip he took, every weekend he said he was golfing with clients, he was with me. I have hotel receipts, text messages, photos. Want to see them? I felt like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed. The poison was nothing compared to this. You're lying. I wish I was. She turned to Wilson. Check his phone. Password is 0614, Emily's birthday, how touching. Look at the hidden folder labeled Project Files. You'll find everything you need. Wilson took Marcus's phone from the personal effects bag. His fingers moved across the screen, and with each swipe, his expression grew grimmer. Mr. Kendrick, you're going to need to come to the station for questioning. I didn't know she was going to poison anyone. Marcus's voice cracked. Yes, we were seeing each other, but I didn't know about the murder plan. She said she just wanted to tell Emily about us after the wedding, that it would be cleaner that way. Cleaner? I repeated. Marrying me and then telling me you'd been cheating with my sister the entire time would be cleaner? The prenup, he said miserably. If I'd called off the wedding, I wouldn't have gotten anything. But if you divorced me after a year, I'd get half of your trust fund according to the agreement your father made you sign. I turned to my father with disbelief. You made me sign a prenup that rewarded him for staying married to me for a year? It's standard in families of our stature, Richard said defensively. I wanted to protect you from fortune hunters, but I also wanted to ensure any spouse was committed to the marriage long term. A 1-year vesting period incentivizes. You incentivized him to use me. The betrayal kept compounding, layer after layer. Did you know about Amanda? Of course not. But you suspected I'd be divorced within a year. That's why you structured it that way. I could see it in his face, the calculation. You never thought Marcus actually loved me. You thought he was after money, so you created a payout structure that required him to at least pretend for 12 months. My father said nothing, which was answer enough. Wilson cleared his throat. Mr. Kendrick, the recordings include discussions of the financial arrangements. While you may not have been aware of the poisoning plot, conspiracy to commit fraud is still a crime. I want a lawyer. Marcus's voice was barely audible. As is your right. Wilson gestured to the officers. Take them both downtown. Separate interrogation rooms. As Amanda was cuffed, she looked back at me one last time. You'll still win, won't you? You'll still be Dad's favorite. Still be the golden child. Still get everything. I don't want everything, I said. I never did. I just wanted a sister. Her face crumpled, and for a split second, I saw the girl she'd been at 8 years old, crying because I'd beaten her science fair project with my volcano that actually worked. I felt guilty then, had offered to share my ribbon with her. She'd thrown it in the trash and told our parents I'd cheated. The officers let her out, Marcus trailing behind with his head down. The door closed, leaving me with my parents and the detective. I'll need statements from both of you, Wilson said to my parents. But first, I need to inform you that we'll be investigating whether Mr. Hartley had any knowledge of his daughter's plans or the insurance fraud. How dare you, my father started. Dad. I cut him off, my voice stronger now. Let him do his job. Wilson nodded respectfully and stepped into the hallway, giving us privacy. My mother sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to jostle me. Emily, sweetheart, we had no idea. You have to believe us. Do I? I studied her perfectly composed face, the face that never showed too much emotion because that would be unseemly. You always knew Amanda resented me. You knew, and you kept pushing us together. Sisters should be close. Family is everything. Stop being so sensitive, Emily, she didn't mean it like that. We were trying to help her. My father's voice was uncharacteristically weak. She struggled so much with self-esteem. With feeling like she measured up. We thought if we gave her grace, support, she'd eventually what? Stop trying to destroy me? I closed my eyes. You gave her grace at my expense. Every single time. And you taught her that was acceptable. What do you want us to say? My mother's composure finally cracked. That we failed as parents? That we created this situation? Fine. We failed. We're sorry. We're so sorry. But she's still our daughter, Emily. We can't just abandon her. Then don't. I opened my eyes and looked at them both. But I'm done. With family dinners where you ask me to be the bigger person. With company meetings where you expect me to mentor her. With every holiday and birthday where I'm supposed to pretend we're a normal, happy family. I'm done. You're upset, my father said. You're in shock. We'll discuss this when you've recovered. No, we won't. Because I'm also done with the company. That got his attention. Emily, be reasonable. You can't throw away your career because of, I can, and I am. I don't want to be CEO. I never really did. I wanted to be a writer, remember? But you convinced me that was impractical, that I should use my talent somewhere meaningful. You dangled a legacy like it was some great honor instead of a prison. I felt a strange lightness despite the poison still circulating through my system. I resign, effective immediately. Find someone else to carry on the Hartley pharmaceutical empire. You can't be serious. My mother's voice rose. What will you do? I have a trust fund that Amanda wasn't the beneficiary of, thank heavens for small miracles. I'll write. I'll travel. I'll figure it out. I looked at them both, these people who had shaped me and failed me in equal measure. I'll be happy, which is something I haven't been in a very long time. My father stood abruptly. I need air. He walked out without another word. My mother stayed, her hand hovering near mine but not quite touching. I know you won't believe this right now, but I do love you. I love you both. I believe you love who you think I am, I said softly. The problem is, you never asked who I actually was. She left in silence, and I was alone with my thoughts and the IV drip working to flush the poison from my system. A nurse came to check my vitals. Your levels are improving, she said cheerfully. You'll probably be here another 2 days for observation, but the doctor is optimistic about a full recovery. Lucky me, I muttered. Your friend is here, the nurse added. She's been waiting since they brought you in. Should I send her away? Friend? I wasn't sure I had any at this point. She said her name is Jade? Kept saying you work together? Jade Chen. We'd hired her 6 months ago as our head of research and development. She was brilliant, funny, and one of the few people at the company who treated me like a person instead of the boss's daughter. Send her in. Jade entered carrying a small potted plant, something green and alive that seemed out of place in the sterile hospital room. I know flowers are cliché, so I brought you this succulent. Hard to kill, like you apparently. Despite everything, I laughed. How much do you know? Enough. The wedding venue called the office looking for insurance information, and I put 2 and 2 together when I heard poisoning and sister. She set the plant on the windowsill. I'm so sorry, Emily. Were you at the reception? I couldn't remember seeing her there. No, I was on a call with the Singapore team. Conference ran late, and by the time I got there, ambulances were loading you up. She pulled a chair close to the bed. I'd been in the waiting room for 3 hours. Your parents wouldn't tell me anything, but I overheard some police officers talking. So you know my sister tried to kill me, my husband was cheating with said sister, and my entire wedding was basically an elaborately staged murder plot? I know your family is messed up beyond anything I've ever encountered, yes. Jade's bluntness was refreshing. What I don't know is how you're feeling. Like I was poisoned, I said dryly. And like my entire life has been a lie. And like the people I trusted most in the world betrayed me so completely that I'm not sure I can ever trust anyone again. Valid. She nodded. Also, for what it's worth, I never liked Marcus. You never said anything. Wasn't my place. But he had that slick quality, you know? Like a used car salesman in expensive suits. She leaned back. And your sister always gave me weird vibes. She came by your office a lot, supposedly to help with wedding stuff, but I caught her going through your files once. My blood chilled. What files? The restricted ones. Client medical histories, proprietary research data, the stuff with passwords. Jade's expression turned serious. I reported it to security, but your dad said she was just confused and thought she had clearance since she worked for the company. They gave her a warning and let it go. Another piece clicked into place. What date was that? Mid-January? Maybe the 15th? 3 days after Marcus proposed. I pressed the heels of my hands against my eyes. She was looking for leverage. Something she could use or sell if the murder plan fell through. That's a cheerful thought. Jade grimaced. Should I tell Detective Wilson? Definitely. Every detail matters now. I dropped my hands and looked at her. Jade, I'm leaving the company. I heard. Your dad was shouting about it in the hallway. Something about you being hysterical and making rash decisions. She grinned. I wanted to applaud. You did? Emily, you're amazing at your job, but you're miserable. Everyone can see it except maybe your parents. She crossed her arms. I've watched you transform from this vibrant person in interviews to someone who looks hunted every time your dad emails you. That's not a job. That's a life sentence. What will you do if I leave? The company was her dream job, the kind of position she'd worked a decade to achieve. Probably leave too, honestly. Your dad's approach to research ethics makes me nauseous. She shrugged. But that's my problem. Right now, we're talking about you. What do you actually want to do? Right, I said without hesitation. I want to write novels. Thrillers, probably, since apparently I've been living in one. You'd be great at that. You have an eye for detail and a way with words. Jade's phone buzzed, and she glanced at it. Listen, I need to get back to work before your dad notices I've been gone, but I'll come back tomorrow. And if you need anything, and I mean anything, call me. I'm on your side, Emily. Always. After she left, I stared at the ceiling tiles and tried to make sense of everything. My sister had tried to kill me. My husband had been cheating with her. My parents cared more about appearances than justice. My father had inadvertently created a financial incentive for my death through his paranoid prenup structuring. But I was alive. And I was free. The thought crystallized slowly, like ice forming on a window. For the first time in my life, I had no obligations to people who didn't value me. No expectations to meet, no legacy to uphold, no role to play in someone else's narrative. I could write my own story now. Detective Wilson returned an hour later, looking exhausted. I have some updates for you, if you're feeling up to it. Hit me. Metaphorically this time. His lips twitched in what might have been a smile. Your sister is maintaining that Marcus was the mastermind, and she was coerced into helping him. Marcus is maintaining that Amanda acted alone, and he knew nothing about the poisoning. Both are lying, but determining who's lying more will take time. What about the recordings? Those are our strongest evidence. Amanda's voice is clear and premeditated. Marcus's responses show knowledge and participation, even if he claims he thought she was joking. Wilson consulted his notes. However, there's a complication. Of course there is. Your father's attorney has submitted motions for Amanda to undergo psychiatric evaluation. If successful, they could argue diminished capacity, which would reduce charges significantly. Let me guess, he's also trying to get Marcus's charges reduced? The bitterness in my voice surprised me. Actually, no. Marcus appears to be on his own. Your father seems focused exclusively on protecting Amanda. Wilson met my eyes. Mrs. Kendrick, I need to ask you something personal. Has your sister ever shown signs of mental illness before? Genuine signs, not just the family making excuses? I thought about it honestly. She was always impulsive. Emotional. But calculated too. She'd plan elaborate lies, maintain them for months. That doesn't seem like mental illness to me, but I'm not a doctor. Our psychologist will evaluate her. But between you and me, what you're describing sounds more like personality disorders, narcissism, possibly antisocial traits, rather than something that would qualify as diminished capacity. He closed his notebook. Your testimony about her patterns of behavior will be crucial. Are you willing to testify against your own sister? The old Emily would have hesitated. Would have worried about family unity, about what people would think, about being the bigger person one more time. Absolutely, I said. Whatever you need. Wilson nodded, respect clear in his expression. Good. One more thing, we found the oleander source. She's been growing it in her apartment for 8 months. There are gardening journals documenting extraction methods, dosage calculations, and testing protocols using lab rats. She kept journals? That was almost worse somehow. Like a diary of planning my murder? Complete with contingency plans if the poisoning didn't work. She had maps of your daily routine, copies of your building's access codes, and a very detailed plan involving a staged break-in. He paused. Mrs. Kendrick, your sister is dangerous. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was systematic predation. The room felt colder. Will she go to prison? If I have anything to say about it, yes. Attempted first-degree murder, fraud, conspiracy, she's looking at 25 years minimum, possibly more. He stood. Get some rest. I'll be in touch. After he left, I let myself cry. Not delicate, pretty tears, but the ugly, gasping sobs of someone whose world had imploded. I cried for the sister I thought I had. For the marriage that existed only on paper. For the parents who chose their comfortable delusions over my safety. For the decade I'd spent trying to earn love from people who viewed me as either a competitor or a commodity. I cried until I had nothing left, and then I slept. The next morning brought a surprise visitor, Harrison Banks, my father's attorney for 30 years. He looked uncomfortable in his tailored suit, carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Emily, I hope I'm not disturbing you. That depends on why you're here. I adjusted the bed to sit upright, ignoring the lingering dizziness. I'm here in a personal capacity, not as your father's representative. He set the briefcase down and remained standing. I've known you since you were 7 years old. I remember when you won the state essay contest in 5th grade, and your father asked me to review the piece because he was certain you plagiarized it. It was too good, he said. I remember that. The memory stung fresh. You confirmed I'd written it myself, and he still didn't apologize for accusing me. No, he didn't. And that was wrong. Harrison's face was grave. Emily, I've watched your father make a lot of poor decisions over the years, always in the name of business or family legacy. But what he's doing now, trying to minimize your sister's actions, pressuring you to keep things quiet, that crosses a line I can't ignore. Why are you telling me this? Because you need your own attorney? One who isn't conflicted by representing your family's interests. He pulled a card from his pocket. This is Natasha Reeves. She's the best criminal victims advocate in the state. I've already briefed her on your situation, and she's willing to represent you pro bono given the circumstances. I took the card, stunned. You're risking your relationship with my father. I've already resigned as his counsel. Harrison's voice was firm. I won't be part of covering up an attempted murder. Not for any amount of money, and not for any client. Some lines you don't cross. Thank you. The words felt inadequate. Truly. Thank your mother, actually. She's the one who called me last night and begged me to help you. She said she spent 30 years watching your father prioritize the wrong daughter, and she's done being complicit. He picked up his briefcase. She'll deny it if asked directly. She's still scared of him, I think, but she wanted you to know that at least one of your parents is trying to do the right thing. After he left, I called Natasha Reeves. She arrived within 2 hours, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with short gray hair and an air of competent fury. I'm going to be direct, she said after introducing herself. Your sister is going to prison. The evidence is overwhelming. But your father has enough money to make this trial drag on for years, and he'll do everything possible to paint you as the villain. We need to be prepared for that. How am I the villain in this scenario? You're the successful daughter who made Amanda feel inadequate. You're the one who stole her boyfriend. You're the one who always got everything while she struggled. Natasha's voice was clinical. That's the narrative they'll push, that Amanda was driven to desperation by years of being overshadowed. They'll try to make the jury sympathize with her. So what do? We tell the truth. All of it. Every time she sabotaged you, every lie she told, every manipulation. We build a pattern of behavior case so clear that no jury could possibly see her as a victim. She opened her laptop. I need you to document everything you can remember. Every incident, every time your parents excused her behavior, every warning sign that was ignored. Can you do that? Yes. I felt energized for the first time since the wedding. I'll start today. Natasha smiled. Good. Also, I'm filing for an emergency annulment of your marriage based on fraud. Marcus married you under false pretenses, and with the evidence of his affair, we should have it dissolved within 3 months. You'll get back everything you brought into the marriage. I don't want his money. It's not his money. It's yours, which he tried to steal via a prenuptial agreement structured by your father to benefit potential cheaters. Her eyes were steely. We're taking back every cent, and then we're going after him for fraud, breach of contract, and emotional damages. Over the next 3 days in the hospital, I wrote. I documented 17 years of systematic abuse, manipulation, and gaslighting. I wrote about the small cruelties that had seemed insignificant at the time but formed a clear pattern in retrospect. I wrote about the college boyfriend who dumped me based on Amanda's lies, and how I discovered years later, through a chance encounter at a conference, that she'd sent him fabricated text messages from a burner phone she'd made to look like mine. I wrote about the job opportunity in Boston I'd turned down because Amanda had accidentally deleted the email thread, causing me to miss the final interview. About the graduate school recommendation letters that never arrived because Amanda had intercepted them, something I'd only learned when a professor mentioned it years later. I wrote about Christmas when I was 15, when I'd saved for months to buy my mother a necklace she'd admired. Amanda had stolen it from my room and gifted it herself, and when I'd accused her, my parents said I was being jealous and spiteful. I'd found it years later in Amanda's jewelry box when helping her move apartments, the engraving I'd paid extra for still visible on the back, to Mom, with love. Every memory I excavated hurt, but it also clarified. This hadn't been sibling rivalry. This had been a sustained campaign of psychological warfare. Jade visited daily, bringing food from my favorite Thai place and updates on the company chaos. My father had apparently suffered some kind of breakdown and was taking medical leave. The board was in upheaval, investors were panicking, and several major contracts were in jeopardy. The CFO is pushing for me to take over as interim CEO, Jade said on day 3. He thinks bringing in external leadership right now would be disastrous for stock prices. You should do it, I told her immediately. You'd be amazing. It's your company, Emily. Your legacy. It was never mine. It was always his. I gestured vaguely toward where my father might be. You actually care about the research, about doing things ethically. You'd be the CEO the company needs. What about you? I'm starting over. I showed her my laptop, filled with pages of notes. I'm writing it all down. Maybe it'll become a book someday. Maybe it'll just be therapy. Either way, I need to do it. On the day of my discharge, my mother appeared in the doorway. She looked smaller somehow, as if the events of the week had physically diminished her. Emily, can we talk? I considered refusing but gestured to the chair. You have 5 minutes. She sat carefully, hands folded in her lap. Your father and I are separating. Whatever I'd expected, it wasn't that. What? I've moved to the apartment downtown. I filed for separation with the intent to divorce. Her voice was steady but strained. I can't be married to a man who would defend one daughter's attempt to murder the other. I can't be that person anymore. Mom, let me finish. She looked up, and I saw tears tracking down her face. I failed you, Emily. For your entire life, I prioritized keeping the peace over protecting you. I told myself Amanda needed extra support, extra grace, and that you were strong enough to handle it. I was wrong. I was so terribly wrong. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. All of it. And I'm ashamed. She wiped her eyes with a tissue. I've given a statement to the police detailing every instance I can remember of Amanda's concerning behavior. I've also told Detective Wilson about the time I caught her researching poisons when she was 16. She said it was for a school project, and I believed her because I wanted to believe her. My blood ran cold. She's been thinking about this for 16 years? I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe she's always had these impulses, and I just looked away. My mother stood. I'm testifying on your behalf at the trial. Harrison, Mr. Banks, has all my documentation. I've also updated my will to exclude Amanda entirely. Everything I have will come to you or go to charity. I don't want your money. I know. But you have it anyway. It's the least I can do. She moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. I know I never said it enough, but I am. You're stronger and braver than I ever was. After she left, I sat in silence, processing this new information. My family was fracturing in real time, and I felt simultaneously guilty and relieved. The trial began 6 weeks later. In that time, I'd finished writing a 300-page memoir of sorts, documenting everything. Natasha had been right. The defense tried to paint me as the privileged daughter who'd never struggled, who'd taken everything Amanda wanted without thought or care. The courthouse was a zoo. News vans lined the street, reporters shouting questions whenever anyone entered or left. Eris poisoning had become national news, complete with breathless coverage dissecting every detail of our family's dysfunction. I stopped reading the articles after the third one speculated about whether I'd somehow driven Amanda to attempt murder through years of flaunting my success. Jury selection took 3 days. Amanda's attorney, a silver-haired shark named Robert Kemper who specialized in high-profile criminal cases, kept trying to seat people who had complicated relationships with siblings. Natasha challenged every single one. We ended up with a jury of 8 women and 4 men, ranging from a retired teacher to a software engineer to a hospital administrator. The prosecution opened with the security footage. Watching it projected on the large screen, seeing Amanda's calculated movements enlarged for the entire courtroom, made it somehow more real and more surreal simultaneously. Several jurors gasped when the syringe appeared. One older woman in the back row covered her mouth. But the evidence was overwhelming. The videos, the recordings, the insurance fraud, the journals documenting months of murder planning. Detective Wilson testified for an entire day, methodically walking through every piece of evidence. He showed the jury photographs of Amanda's apartment, the oleander plants thriving on her balcony, the chemistry equipment hidden in her bedroom closet, the detailed notes on extraction methods. This wasn't impulsive, Wilson said, looking directly at the jury. This was a research project that took months of preparation and testing. Amanda's attorney fought hard, bringing in psychiatric experts who testified about personality disorders and adverse childhood experiences. Dr. Marcus Sheffield, a renowned psychologist, spent 2 hours explaining how being the less favored child could create profound psychological damage leading to extreme behaviors. Amanda Hartley grew up in the shadow of perfection, he said earnestly. Her sister was smarter, more accomplished, more loved. That kind of constant comparison can fracture a person's sense of self, leading to desperate acts. Natasha's cross-examination was surgical. Dr. Sheffield, how many people grow up feeling less favored than their siblings? It's quite common, actually. And how many of them commit premeditated murder? He hesitated. A very small percentage. A tiny percentage, in fact. Because most people, even those who experience childhood trauma, don't spend months planning to poison their siblings at a wedding reception. She pulled out Amanda's journals. Would you say this level of planning, complete with backup plans, contingency scenarios, and detailed timelines, indicates someone who was impulsively acting out of psychological damage, or someone who was coldly, deliberately pursuing a goal? Dr. Sheffield couldn't answer that in a way that helped Amanda. My mother testified. She detailed years of concerning behavior that had been dismissed or explained away. The courtroom fell silent as she described finding Amanda, at age 16, with books on poisonous plants spread across her bed. She told me it was for a biology project, my mother said, her voice breaking. She even showed me a fake assignment sheet she'd created. I believed her because I wanted to believe her. Because acknowledging what it might really mean was too terrible. During cross-examination, Kemper tried to suggest my mother was exaggerating events to protect her surviving daughter. Isn't it convenient, Mrs. Hartley, that you're suddenly remembering all these warning signs only after your daughter tried to kill her sister? My mother straightened in her chair. It's not convenient, Mr. Kemper. It's devastating. I'm testifying because I failed one daughter by enabling her, and I failed the other by not protecting her. I'm trying to do the right thing now, even though it's far too late. That answer seemed to resonate with the jury. I saw several of them nodding. Jade testified about catching Amanda in restricted files. 3 of Amanda's ex-friends testified about her obsessive jealousy and vindictive nature. One woman, Rebecca Choi, described an incident where Amanda had slashed her tires after she'd gotten a promotion Amanda wanted. She sent me anonymous threats for weeks, Rebecca said. Said I'd stolen what was rightfully hers. I only found out it was Amanda when she accidentally sent one from her real email address instead of the fake account she'd created. What did you do? The prosecutor asked. I told her I was going to report her to the police. She broke down crying, said she was having a mental health crisis, begged me not to ruin her life. Rebecca's expression was grim. I backed down. I thought I was being compassionate. Now I wonder if I could have prevented all of this by not giving her another chance. I was called to testify on the trial's 8th day. Walking to the stand, I could feel Amanda's eyes burning into me. I'd avoided looking at her throughout the trial, but now I forced myself to meet her gaze. She looked smaller in her demure blue dress, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. Her attorney had clearly coached her to appear sympathetic, vulnerable. But her eyes were cold. Empty. Whatever sister I'd once known, or thought I'd known, was gone. Maybe she'd never existed at all. I testified for 4 hours. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Margaret Walsh, took me through every incident I documented, building a clear picture of systematic abuse and escalating violence. We covered the deleted college essays, the fabricated cheating allegations, the stolen letters of recommendation. Each story built on the last, creating an undeniable pattern. Did you ever fight back? Walsh asked. Retaliate in any way? No, I said. I thought if I just ignored it, rose above it, she'd eventually stop. Or grow out of it. I didn't realize you can't grow out of who you fundamentally are. The defense attorney tried to shake me during cross-examination, suggesting I was bitter, jealous, dramatic. Kemper was good at his job, he made everything sound just plausible enough to create doubt. Isn't it true that you always got more attention from your parents? He asked. Attention isn't the same as love, I replied. My father gave me attention because he saw me as his legacy project. My mother gave me attention because I didn't require the same emotional management as Amanda. Neither of them actually knew me. That sounds like resentment, Ms. Hartley. It's clarity, Mr. Kemper. There's a difference. He tried a different angle. You expect the jury to believe your own sister hated you enough to kill you over a man? He asked skeptically. It was never about Marcus, I said calmly, looking directly at the jury. It was about her needing to win. About her inability to let me have anything without taking it, destroying it, or poisoning it. Literally, in this case. During redirect, Walsh asked me one final question. Emily, if you could say anything to your sister right now, what would it be? I finally looked at Amanda fully. She stared back, her expression unreadable. I'd tell her I'm sorry, I said quietly. Sorry that she spent so much of her life hating me instead of building her own life. Sorry that she let bitterness consume her until murder seemed like a reasonable solution. And sorry that she'll never understand that the only person who truly robbed her of anything was herself. Amanda's face twisted with rage. She half stood, her attorney grabbing her arm, before she composed herself and sat back down. But the mask had slipped. The jury had seen what lay beneath. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the forewoman, the retired teacher, read the verdicts in a steady voice. Guilty on all counts: attempted first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and assault with a deadly weapon. Amanda showed no reaction. She simply stared straight ahead as if none of this was happening to her. The sentencing hearing happened 2 weeks later. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Helen Blackwood, listened to impact statements from me, my mother, and even Rebecca Choi. Then she turned to Amanda. Ms. Hartley, this was one of the most calculated, cold-blooded cases I've encountered in 30 years on the bench. You didn't act in a moment of passion. You didn't make a terrible mistake. You spent months plotting to murder your sister on what should have been the happiest day of her life. The court sentences you to 30 years without possibility of parole. Amanda finally reacted. Her face crumpled, and she turned to look at our mother in the gallery. Mom, please. Don't let them do this. My mother looked away. As officers led Amanda from the courtroom, she screamed at me. This isn't over, Emily. You think you've won, but you haven't. You'll never be free of me. Judge Blackwood banged her gavel. Remove the defendant immediately. The courtroom doors closed behind my sister, and silence fell. Marcus took a plea deal, 5 years for conspiracy to commit fraud and obstruction of justice. He'd have to testify against Amanda in civil proceedings, and he'd lose his professional license. My father never attended the trial. He'd suffered a stroke 2 weeks after my mother left him and was recovering in a private facility. I visited him once, mostly to tell him I forgave him, not for his sake, but for mine. He cried and apologized, but I don't think he fully understood what he was apologizing for. The annulment was granted. I got back everything, plus damages from Marcus's assets. I donated it all to domestic violence prevention organizations. Now, 6 months after the worst day of my life, I sit in a small apartment in Portland, watching rain streak the windows while my laptop hums with a story I'm writing. It's a thriller about a woman who discovers her entire family has been gaslighting her for years, and her journey to reclaim her identity. Jade calls weekly to update me on the company, which is thriving under her leadership. She's implementing all the ethical reforms I'd only dreamed of proposing. My mother calls too, tentatively rebuilding a relationship based on honesty instead of obligation. I'm in therapy twice a week, working through decades of trauma. I'm learning to trust people again, slowly, carefully. I've made a few friends in my writing group, people who knew nothing about my past and liked me anyway. Some days are hard. I'll see someone who looks like Amanda, or I'll taste something bitter and panic. The therapist says that's normal, that healing isn't linear, but most days are good. Better than good. I wake up without dread. I write stories that matter to me. I make choices based on what I want instead of what's expected. I'm still Emily Hartley, though I'm considering changing my name, starting fresh with something that's only mine. I'm still figuring out who that person is, who I am when I'm not performing for an audience that never really saw me. But I'm alive. I'm free. And I'm writing my own story now. That's more than enough. There's a strange gift hidden in our darkest moments, the chance to finally become who we truly are. When the people and systems we trusted fail us, we're forced to rebuild from nothing. It's terrifying and painful, but it's also where real freedom lies. We learn that survival isn't just about enduring the worst, it's about refusing to let that worst define us. Some family bonds are toxic, and choosing to walk away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Real strength comes from protecting yourself, even when the world tells you family should be protected at all costs. Your life belongs to you. Your story is yours to write. And sometimes, the greatest victory is simply choosing to live authentically, surrounded by people who genuinely see and value you. That's not just survival, that's transformation.